I'd drain the seas dry, fell every tree. I would sacrifice the sun from the fucking sky and surrender the stars too, if I could. But those things aren't mine to give. All I have is my life. Sorry, I'm laughing because it's so corny. It's so corny. Guys, I love love, okay? But this is just like, it's a little intense. It's a little much.
It's a little intense, yeah.
It's a little like over the top. Like, I'm going to tell you right now, I love my husband. I'm not cutting down every tree in the world for him. I'm too tired and I like the trees. You know? I'm not going to do
not
that.
The trees. Unrealistic, okay?
Unrealistic.
Welcome back to the Book Talk Fantasy Podcast.
I'm Addison.
I'm Lorraine, and we are two best friends who explore the world of fantasy through book shows and movies, but with a heavy emphasis on books. We are finally getting closer to finishing out Brimstone, and I also feel like we're getting some more important plot information, which I hope we just keep building on because it's been a long time coming. I just want to know what happens in this book at this point. So
Lorraine's over it, guys. She's over it.
Yeah, honestly, a little bit, yeah. So anyways, as a quick reminder, we will be discussing chapters 27 through 35 specifically. Since we are starting a brand new book and neither Addison nor I have read Brimstone before, you will not be getting any spoilers for the rest of the Booker series, but you will, of course, get lots of crazy theories and reactions. Also, please make sure you have read both Quicksilver and the Kingfisher POV bonus chapters because we will make references to both. Furthermore, we would like to remind everyone that this is an adult podcast where we will have adult conversations. Explicit language or potentially triggering topics may be discussed, so please be mindful of that and adjust accordingly. Housekeeping. Our next Brimstone episode will cover chapters 36 through 43, and that should be our second to last chunk, so we're almost there. Next, we do have our reviews of the week. So our first one was from PemPem1221, and they said, love, chill and fun, personable hosts, excellent recaps, interesting theories. I may or may not have re-listened to all of the Onyx Storm episodes. It's the best cure for book hangovers. And then our second one is from Balancing Laura, and they said, love this podcast. Addison and Lorraine are amazing hosts. Their insights and recaps are top-notch, and I love this is a spoiler-free podcast. It takes the pressure off listeners to finish an entire book or series before diving into content. Thank you guys for all that you do. I can't even begin to imagine how much work goes into each episode. You are phenomenal.
Aw, thank
Wonderful.
you. And just so you know, guys, it's a lot of work. It's so much work, but we do it because we love you.
It is a lot of work, but every time we read our reviews, then we just get supercharged. And then we're like, okay, we can continue working. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for leaving a review. We really appreciate y'all tuning in every week to listen to us. So we hope you stick around. All right. And then finally, as we get closer and closer to the release of Threshing Day in late September and ACOTAR 6 in late October, we want to give you a quick schedule update. We will be covering both of those books, and we are currently in discussion of what we will be covering in the off weeks between those releases, so we'll keep you posted. We may have a little bit of extra time between the end of Brimstone before Threshing Day. We'll see, depending on how quickly we get the rest of these episodes out, but then we should definitely have a little bit of time between Threshing Day and then that first ACOTAR 6 books. So yeah, if there's anything you guys want us to cover in particular, make sure you guys send us a message. You can text us, you can DM us, or whatever you'd like to do. All right, so that's all for housekeeping. And now we're going to get into the episode. We'll start with the book report for chapter summaries, and then we'll dive into an analysis and offer theories for each chapter. And finally, we will share our favorite moments. With that being said, Addison, please give us the book report.
Happily. Chapter 27. Fisher, Carrion, and Hayden stared at the ginormous Quicksilver pool in disbelief. Elroy explained that his family had been refining Quicksilver from any metal objects that came through their shop and collecting it, and it had only recently become a liquid pool. Elroy tells them he assumed it had something to do with Ceres and when she pulled Solus from the Quicksilver pool in the palace. But before he could continue, Fisher interrupted him and asked him how the hell he knew about Solus. Elroy went on to tell them there used to be drawings and other documents, but his father had a fire-related accident and he had burned the rest years ago to protect Ceres. They begin discussing how they would not need to go back into Madras Palace to return home since they now had access to this Quicksilver pool when the Quicksilver pool exploded. Fisher hesitated for only moments before realizing the only reason Ceres would have opened it early was if she had been in danger, and so he stepped into the pool. Hayden and Carrion followed. Chapter 28. Saris returned to consciousness and immediately began to panic when she realized the Quicksilver pool was open and someone was coming through it. But Callie Hart got us good because the pale-skinned, dark-haired Fey male wasn't Fisher, it was Orious, Bellacon's seneschal. Orious presented an offer from Bellacon to Saris, and to absolutely no one's surprise, Saris rejected it immediately. Angered by Saris's response, Orious ordered the 5 Fey guards that came with him to attack Saris. Big mistake because our girl leveled up. Using her new alchemy powers, she forged Solace anew into 2 smaller swords, using nothing but her magic and will. The guards shot arrows at Saris, but she deflected them easily. In response, they drew their null blades. Saris had never encountered them before, but there was a strangeness to them, an otherworldliness that somehow nullified her magic against them. Saris managed to take down 2 of the guards when Kingfisher came through the Quicksilver, but the remaining guards weren't getting off that easy. Saris's rune flared, projecting her magical shield in a burst of power that blasted the guards back, instantly breaking their necks. All that remained was Orious. Naturally, Kingfisher wanted to rip Orious to shreds, but Saris urged him to let Orious go back to Bellacon to share what he had just witnessed and to not stoop to their level. Fisher made Orious crawl like the worm he was, and once he was gone, Fisher embraced Saris, but their reunion was interrupted when Carrion told Saris that he had something he thought belonged to her. It was Hayden. Boo. Chapter 29. Saris was waiting anxiously for Hayden to wake up, but it would be hours, days even, before he did, so Taylena ordered Saris to go and rest a while she watched over Hayden. Saris reluctantly agreed and made her way to Fisher's bedroom, and when she got there, she found Archer and several other fire sprites heating a bath and tidying the room, which was no big deal at all, except to Archer, it was. According to Archer, there's a way things are supposed to be done, but Saris was insistent on upending the traditions and bringing Kalish into the modern world. Before their disagreement could persist, Archer had a fit when one of the fire sprites picked up Lady Adina's most treasured trinket, a small ceramic Kingfisher bird figurine. Saris tried to soothe Archer, but it was of no use. The fire sprites left just as Fisher arrived in sand-filled boots. He admired her newly forged godswords, and then, of course, instead of sleeping or being productive or discussing all the important shit that has happened, Saris and Fisher used this time to make grand declarations of love and obsession, and then banged. Yay. You can tell Lorraine and I have thoughts about that. Chapter 30. Saris and Kingfisher woke to Archer frantically calling for Fisher. Something was wrong. Very wrong. It was Everlayne. She was in some kind of fugue state, and even Taylena couldn't reach her with her magic. She was veiled in shadows. Her consciousness felt like it was behind a wall. After thrashing around and pleading for it to stop, in a voice that was not her own, she said, The gate is open, and it cannot be closed." Everlayne's body went limp and she collapsed back on the bed. Not really sure what to do, the gang went to the dining hall to discuss what the hell had just happened, and they formulated a plan. They dispersed, and Saris, Fisher, and Carrion headed back to Amontreyev to get more books from the library. Back in Amontreyev, Saris and Carrion went to look for Taladeus, and just as they were about to open his door, none other than Zovina appeared, which actually turned out to be a good thing because Saris had a bone to pick with her. Zovina admitted to keeping the letters from Fisher and the rest of the Lupoprolia away from Foley, and so Saris ordered her to deliver them to Foley personally today. Zovina was furious, but before things could escalate any further, Tal's door swung open, and there was Taladeus, naked and erect. Talk about a plot twist. Chapter 31. Fisher hummed soothingly to Onyx as he made his way to Saris's bedroom. Once there, using his magic, Fisher conjured a piece of yummy fish for Onyx. And thanks, sweet Onyx gave Fisher a perfect tiny pine cone. If that didn't melt your heart, then this next part of the chapter definitely will. Fisher made his way to the library, and out of his shadow, Guru appeared. Fisher, being superstitious, decided to follow the cat, which led him directly to Foley's little alcove among the stacks. Foley and Fisher had a heart-to-heart about Foley coming back to Kalish. Foley gave a hard no because he thought he was nothing but a monster and was afraid that his hunger would be too much for him to control. Fisher, determined to prove him wrong, pricked his finger and dripped his blood onto the table, but Foley didn't budge. Instead, he focused on the tiny box that contained Joshin, the scorpion demon, and listened to Fisher's story about his run-in with Joshin and the deal they had struck. Foley agreed to keep the box containing Joshin with him until Fisher asked for it back, and then asked Fisher to tell him more about the secret Joshin told him. Chapter 32. Saris and Carrion entered Taladeus' room, and while Saris was doing her best to look anywhere but at Tal, Carrion was leaning hard. Get it? And admiring a very naked Taladeus. They had a brief discussion in which Tal referred to Carrion as Diambus, and Carrion kind of crashed out about it. Ceres then addressed the door being barred, and Tal explained it was because, I don't know, maybe because Ceres kept completely abandoning her post as Queen of Sanus Roth. Taladeus then gave her the null blade he recovered and strongly encouraged her to throw it in a dark, deep pit and forget about it. They were interrupted when Yannicka appeared to measure Ceres for her gown for the Evenlight Ball, which Ceres attempted to refuse to go to, but Taladeus informed her she was basically obligated to, and also she had to pick a new Lord of Midnight. Hooray. She begrudgingly agreed and then made her way to the library with the null blade so she could study it more. Along the way, the paper stargazers began to gather until there were hundreds of them. One of them sliced Ceres on the cheek again, and then the birds kind of went crazy. Before Ceres knew what was happening, the stargazers began to unfurl and fall to the ground until they formed a book. But not just any book, a navy blue book with a silver butterfly on the cover. It was the book Adina had told Ceres to find. Fisher appeared and Ceres panicked, remembering Adina's warning about Fisher knowing about the book, but it just didn't feel right for her to keep it from him. So she caved immediately and showed Fisher the book. Fisher briefly skimmed the first page and gave it back to her, saying he trusted her and his mother, and the book was for her and her alone. Chapter 33. Fisher opened the book and read his mother's last words to him. It was short and bittersweet. She told Fisher that the road ahead had many paths, but the one in which Ceres Vane gave him this book was the one where their bond was strongest. She then told him not to grieve her soul staying on this side of the veil because she had no regrets. She had cherished every moment of watching him become the man she knew he would be. She told him she loved him, and then she told him to give the book back. Chapter 34. Ceres was kind of pissed about Adina's little test and itching to read Adina's book, but she was constantly bothered with questions about the preparations for the Evenlight Ball, and so she decided to abandon Sanus Roth and give Taladeus full range over the Evenlight Ball and head to college for the night. Back in college, Carrion and Ceres were in the forge studying the null blade. Carrion told Ceres they should try just not worrying about it, and Ceres quipped back, sort of like how he was just not worrying about his birthright. You know, being the heir to the Avelian throne and all that. Carrion began to tell Ceres that he felt conflicted because the people of Avelia didn't know or care about him. As he said this, Archer arrived with a tray of food and very touchingly told Carrion he was wrong. Ceres then asked Archer about Lady Adina, and he told them about her, remembering there were flowers that grew outside the forge that she had loved. Excited, he hurried out of the forge to retrieve some, but his shrieks for help told Ceres something was very wrong. Ceres and Carrion quickly ran outside, and to their horror, a feeder infected with the rot was trying to haul Archer over the wall. A fight ensued that ended when the nasty feeder ripped open Archer's throat and his magma-like blood spewed onto the feeder, melting him entirely. Frantic to save Archer, Ceres and Carrion carried him into the forge. Chapter 35. Everyone gathered in the extremely hot quarters of the fire sprites, and Lorith explained to them what the substance was called that came out of Archer. It was brimstone, an element that was really a kind of magic all on its own, and it just so happened brimstone was the only substance they knew of that could kill the rot. That was where the good news ended and the bad news began. Ishabel explained to them there was a finite amount of brimstone, and all of it was spoken for by the fire sprites. To kill the rot, every fire sprite in Avelia would have to die. So, yeah, they were still fucked. Fisher and Ceres went to the roof to get some fresh air, and Fisher told her a really weird but cute story about the time his father lost a toad to a graven in exchange for a love potion. The sun was coming up, and so they went to Fisher's room and fell asleep so they could go to the Huntsman cottage in their dream state again. They took some time just for themselves and vowed to always be there and take care of each other. And that concludes the book report. Sorry, that felt kind of abrupt, but that's it. That's what happened.
That was everything. All done. All right. Well, thank you for the book report. And without further ado, let's get into the analysis, starting with, of course, some overarching thoughts.
All right. So I feel like my overarching thoughts are a bit all over the place, but here goes nothing. First, I talked about this in the episode, but there's really not a super great place to put it, so we'll just kind of put it here. Where the hell is Remphis? Where is he? He's been gone for basically the entire book. What the hell is he doing? Why doesn't he pop in? Multiple times, Lorith has been off page, doing something, warning people, helping people, whatever, but he always pops back in during important events. So why isn't Remphis doing that? Even Ishabel did. So I just find that extremely suspicious, and I kind of thought about it the last episode, but I'm like, surely in this set of chapters, Remphis will reappear, but no. And now I'm like on high alert for that.
Yeah. Well, it seems like he's been off, like his thing has been farther, because remember, Fisher makes that comment about how he should be in Ballard or something by now. And so I think his tasks required him to travel farther. But the fact that nobody's heard from him is weird.
Yeah, we'll talk about it more for sure. I know he had to go to Galaria first, which is pretty far, but Fisher can open shadow gates, and Ceres can activate Quicksilver, so traveling anywhere should take moments. So we'll talk about it more later, but I'm suspicious, okay? I'm
Same.
suspicious something is going on.
Yes.
Next, I'm giving you a fair warning now. I know I complained about it in the last episode, but not another sex scene. Not another one. Okay, again, I like spies. I think Callie Hart writes it well. But good lord, Saris and Fisher have got to take a break. They have a lot of important shit to do. Can they do literally anything else? Because if they're not doing it, they're thinking about it. And I'm over that. I'm over that. Okay, and I know I complained about the last episode, but come on. Come on.
I agree. I just don't care. Quite frankly, I don't care. I'm like, just please move on.
Bruh.
Please move on and figure
you.
something else out that's important to the plot.
It's every day and we have to read the whole scene. You know, I don't even mind if they're doing it every day. But like, well, okay, we'll talk about it when we get there. Next, Fisher's chapter with Foley. I thought the way Fisher described the forging of their relationship was really touching. And something I think that Callie Hart does really, really well is writing relationships between characters, the histories, the emotion, really all the components of it. And I feel like she does it so quickly because just in that few paragraphs, 1 minute I was pretty strongly disliking Foley, and the next I was rooting for him. I was like, oh my God, Foley, come back, you know, like be a wolf again. So that's a pretty quick turnaround for me because I'm kind of unforgiving. But yeah, I think she did a really good job with that scene. So I really enjoyed that part. Last, overall, I found this set of chapters to actually be pretty emotional in a variety of ways, and I actually liked it. There were a lot of emotional scenes and moments for a lot of the different characters, not just Saris and Kingfisher, and it made me happy. I really like to be emotionally invested and subsequently damaged by the books I read, and so I feel like we're being set up nicely for that because my soul did almost leave my body when I thought Archer was going to die. So
Archer.
Yeah. I know. Thank God he's okay.
I know. I feel like there's only a few scenes that really got me like had me on the edge of my seat, and I was like really paying attention when I was reading them, and that was like the Stargazer scene and then Archer being attacked, you know, just because I love Archer and I didn't want him to die, and because I finally feel like we're making a little bit more progress towards the plot. Like now that she has the book, I'm like, okay, now she can finally learn all the answers that she needs to as it relates to her alchemy and whatever's going on with the rot in the world and whatever Saris needs to do, right? Dina has hopefully wrapped it up in a nice little package of this book, and we can just read it and things will be good to go, hopefully. But overall, I do like the character development and it's fun to go to different places. But I feel like there was just a fair amount of scenes that felt really long and some that I also felt were just kind of unnecessary. Mostly just the fact that they were so long. There was just like so much filler stuff. I'm sure there will be things in retrospect that I'll realize were actually important. But for now, I felt like the outside of the few exciting tidbits of info, a lot of it was a little boring to me. I was a little bored with a lot of what we were reading. So I still liked it, but I wasn't like super excited being like, oh, I really want to sit down and read these chapters. It just felt like a little bit of a chore where I was like half paying attention. So
listen, I get what you mean. It kind of feels like everything is happening and nothing is happening.
Yes.
Which is a weird thing to achieve. Like, how did you do that? I don't mean it in a bad way, but it's not really, it makes it kind of hard to feel invested.
Yeah, like
because there's no payoff.
Listening time. Like if you're listening to the audio version of this, right? It's like, okay, so I just listened to 3.5 hours of this book and there were like 2 to 3 pieces of information that I was like, oh, that's kind of important. But the rest of it, I was like, I don't know. I just kind of read it and I was like, okay, great, next. Like, so hopefully the next ones are more exciting.
I have a suspicion, which we'll talk about in our end of book wrap up when we finish. I think this is a common issue with a lot of middle books in the series.
Yes.
I call it middle book syndrome because it's really hard to drive a compelling book without giving too much away, continuing the first, but also like filling the page time and giving the details. I think middle books are hard. I kind of felt that way about Onyx Storm too. So we'll talk about it when we finish the book. We'll see how it ends, but just prepare yourselves.
All right. Okay. So that wraps up our overarching thoughts, and we're going to get started with the chapters, starting with chapter 27.
The title of this chapter is What's Done is Done. This is in reference to when Elroy reveals to everyone that he's destroyed the remaining documents he had about Quicksilver and whatever other magical shit. And Carrion says, what's done is done, which is true because ain't nothing they can do about it now. Fisher is in disbelief at the sheer size of Elroy's secret Quicksilver pool. Elroy informs him that they've been refining the Quicksilver out of any weapon or jewelry that has come across their threshold for years, and only recently did it turn into its liquid state.
So I know Saris has done this specifically with the silver. And that made more sense to me. But my question with this is like, how was Elroy able to refine it and pull it out if he wasn't an alchemist? And how was he able to withstand exposure to it over time, since it seems like his father seemed to have been affected by it? And he kind of alludes to perhaps being affected by it, but he doesn't state that he himself necessarily hears voices. And it's not like Elroy's crazy yet. So, I was like, what's going on there?
This is actually such a good question. Based on what we learned back in Quicksilver, the only way you can quote unquote handle Quicksilver without affecting you is with the relic. So even if Elroy's father and Elroy were using gloves, they would not have been able to handle it. So it's possible that they had a relic also, but I feel like Elroy would have mentioned that. Like that would have come up.
Right.
My only counter theory would be that when the sword Solus was still inside the Quicksilver pool, it made all the Quicksilver everywhere sleep. I'm thinking back to Quicksilver, like when Ceres first interacts with it and the Quicksilver's like, no, been sleeping too long. And so when it was asleep, it was inactive and therefore I would say like poisonous properties were dormant and it couldn't really impact people the same way. But then his father went mad. So I don't know. That feels like a little bit of a plot hole to me.
I agree. And like, are we just assuming that Quicksilver in its solid state acts like other metals? And so like they can just refine it, even though it's a magical metal?
Well, but I don't know a lot about refining, but I'm pretty sure you melt metals to refine them, to pull them out and separate them. So,
right. Yeah.
I don't know. It's weird.
Whatever.
Ignored for the sake of the plot.
That's right. Yeah.
Elroy assumes the Quicksilver pool going liquid had something to do with Ceres pulling Solus out of the Quicksilver pool in Madras Palace, which was news to Fisher because how the heck did Elroy know about Solus?
Dude, I'm going to need a lot more backstory on Elroy and his family, because the whole explanation of seeing drawings of it as a child and his father like hearing voices, plus Elroy knowing Ceres had magic that affected metals, just like kind of screams magical lineage himself. Even if Elroy himself doesn't have magic, I feel like his family, perhaps like periodically throughout their lineage, would have it, or like somebody somewhere down the line was an alchemist or whatever, and that's how they figured all of this out. But he knows way too much to be just an average human Zilvaran citizen,
Oh, I totally agree. I think it goes back to our ongoing speculation that Zilvaran and Avelia were once openly connected. And so there's a lot more cross-lineage, cross-cultural meshing.
Mm-hmm. So honestly, I get Elroy was trying to protect Ceres by getting rid of any documents he had related to magic or alchemy, but like, why not just go store them with the pool of Quicksilver or something, since apparently he'd figure out how to keep that under lock and key? Like, why were you like, oh, I need to destroy these, when you could literally just go put it in the storage with that?
I think overall, he still felt it was too risky. I honestly think if he could have gotten rid of the Quicksilver pool too, I feel like he would have. That was just something he couldn't get rid of.
True.
But I agree. Like, if you're able to hide a Quicksilver pool, you could probably put the papers down there and be just fine. Because if someone's finding your Quicksilver pool, you're already doomed. It doesn't matter what they find down there. Unless it contained critical information that he didn't want to fall into the wrong hands. Now, I did play with that a little bit, that maybe it has something about her lineage, which I think I talked about in a few minutes. So yeah, I jumped ahead of myself. I just got too excited.
Yeah. We'll get there when we get there. Aside from that, I do appreciate that Elroy was looking out for Ceres by trying to keep her away from metals. I can imagine that wasn't easy for him to like kick her out of the forge, knowing she'd be left totally on her own to fend for herself and Hayden. But I suppose that is better than like guaranteeing her death by having her be close to the metals and like react to them and stuff. So
ditto. I hope that Elroy survives in the series and he gets to live in Avelia, or like Zilvaran becomes a nice place to live again. I'll take either, because I really like Elroy. He's my favorite human character. There aren't that many human characters, but he's the best one. Something that really stood out to me is when Fisher thinks, what had been in those papers that could have damned Ceres? I was beginning to suspect I knew the answer to that question, but I didn't know how to approach it in my mind. I feel like this just gets glazed over and we don't really return to the thought, but it seems pretty significant to me that Fisher suspects something of great importance that it would have revealed about Ceres and still has to sort through exactly how he feels about it. This seems extremely important to me, and I feel like it will come back up again. I don't know how or when. I do think it's kind of weird that Fisher and Ceres never have a conversation about what he discovered about Elroy. And I just feel like that's going to come up later. He'd be like, oh, by the way, Elroy destroyed some papers and I had suspected this about you, whatever.
Right.
So of course, wouldn't be the Booked on Fantasy podcast without some speculation. So my best guess, and this is something I have been screaming into the void about literally since we started Quicksilver, but I think it has to do with their lineage. I mean, if you think about it, the papers have to be relevant to Cerys specifically, and I feel like it's heavily implied that Elroy was tasked with watching over Cerys specifically. Why would she need that unless she has Fae lineage, and likely notable lineage like royalty or something like Carrion, right? Carrion got a whole generations of a family to watch over him, and so I feel like it's important. And of course, we'll probably never talk about it again because the book will just skip over it. But I didn't forget and I won't forget.
Yeah, never forget. I agree with that a lot. I mean, I kind of just figured maybe it was related to alchemists and alchemist power, since in just the whole context of what was going on right now, they're talking about her power, and Elroy was really scared of people noticing her power and therefore putting her in danger. And obviously alchemists influence the Quicksilver and blah, blah, blah. So that's kind of like what I figured, but I do think it would be a really good thought about them being perhaps just related to Cerys's lineage, because would definitely like to know who her daddy was. We still don't know, so... I also wanted to note that Fisher felt like the Quicksilver in his eye connected him to Cerys, stating that it was far more active when she was around, and when she wasn't, it echoed her mood somehow. And I'm glad to have this confirmed because it was something I was wondering about previously. Cerys has always seemed to have this calming effect for the Quicksilver in his eye, and I do wonder if in the future she'd actually be able to control it from afar or something as well.
Do you think that's because they're mates or because she's an alchemist or both?
I mean, I think it's kind of both. I mean, I think Fisher as a whole is more calm when he's with Cerys, but there have been like several comments about the Quicksilver, even Cerys noting kind of like that it seemed to still when she was nearby him. And since she is connected to it, and now that they've talked with the gods and like had all this conversation, like I kind of feel like that definitely also plays a role. So I am kind of upset that the Quicksilver pool exploded because I really wanted Fisher to go find out how the hell Madra was creating and sending out the effective beaters. But on the other hand, obviously Cerys was in trouble and he needed to go get his girl. So I guess we'll have to wait on that, but we definitely should come back to it.
Same. I actually feel this is a bit of, I don't want to call it a plot hole, but a plot issue or misstep. One of the primary reasons they had for going to Zilvarn was to investigate the infected feeders. They get the silver, they get Hayden, and of course they go back unexpectedly, but there really isn't a discussion again about the Frankenstein feeders. In fact, no one has brought them up or discussed them at all since the very first chapter. And I mean, like, those nasty feeders killed like hundreds and hundreds of warriors. They're completely lethal, huge threat to everyone. And now it's just kind of like, yeah, like the rot. Yeah, it's bad. Yeah. And so it's odd. It's odd, I'll say.
Yeah. Fisher assumes Cerys must have opened the Quicksilver early, but I did take note of Carrion questioning if perhaps there were other alchemists as well. I think we wondered this before, but I find it hard to believe that Cerys is the only one still in existence, and that Madra, for example, doesn't have one imprisoned for her own personal use or something.
There's got to be someone somewhere. The question is, do they know what they are and have access to the knowledge to teach them how to use a Quicksilver? That's the question.
Fisher, Carrion, and Hayden all agree to jump into the Quicksilver and go to Cerys. And this was unimportant, but can you imagine if they all ended up in different places? I actually feel like that would have been kind of hilarious. Like, I could totally see an alternative situation where Carrion ended up in a college bathhouse or something like that. And like, they're all just like, where's Carrion? And he's like totally fine. But
instead of thinking of Cerys, he's thinking about them hot water sprites.
That's right. Yeah.
That's so good. Or I was thinking maybe in bed with Danya.
Ooh. Bleh. Probably.
Bleh.
Honestly. So, yeah. All right. So that ends chapter 27. Moving on to chapter 28.
The title of this chapter is Seneschal. This is reference to Orious' appearance in this chapter. He serves as Seneschal to King Belicon. And if you're like me and did not know what the hell a seneschal was, I looked it up for you. A seneschal is a historical term for someone that is a high-ranking steward or manager who ran a medieval king, noble, or prince's household and estate. So basically, he's just like a glorified servant to Belicon.
Yeah. Yeah. Fancy servant. Not even fancy.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah.
A servant with a fancy title.
Yeah.
Cerys wakes up next to the Quicksilver pool and immediately begins to panic because she had no idea how long the pool had been activated for. She realizes something, or rather someone is coming through, but now intuitively knew the gate couldn't close while someone was traveling through it. I'm just filing that information away for later as world building info about how Quicksilver works and how the pools work. So can't close it if someone or something is coming through. Hart got me good because the way it's described, someone with dark hair and pale skin, makes it sound like Kingfisher is about to come out, because we know in the previous chapter he literally walks into it. But instead, it was Orious. Did not see that coming at all.
Same. That was really surprising to me, honestly, because I just didn't expect to see Orious again. I was like, Orious who?
Right?
Like, where were you from?
Well, see, I immediately thought of you because if you recall, Lorraine, you were very highly suspicious of him when he was introduced in the early Quicksilver episodes. You were like kind of fixated on him and his appearance, and just you thought he was real suspect.
He is suspect. I'm still wondering what the hell is wrong with him, because like, again, they keep describing him as like, just, he seems like he's like infected with something, or he's just like, I don't know, maybe he's just really old and decrepit. Maybe he's a vampire. I don't know. But like, why does he look like he should be in the grave by now? Like, relative to other old people, right? Like, he seems to be like really aging, I guess, as a fae.
I think he's just really old because remember, they do age. It's just very, 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 very slowly. I think he's just old, like old, even for the fae, you know?
Maybe, but he seems like sickly. He just seems like Feeder-esque to me, but they never confirm it. And so I guess maybe, yeah, we just have to assume that he's really freaking old.
I do agree they describe him similarly to a feeder. Not quite obviously the same grotesqueness, but they're like a gash of a mouth or rotted teeth or whatever.
Yeah.
Orious reveals that he is there on behalf of Bellicon and he has an offer to present to Ceres, so we will go through it now. The first part of the offer is not really an offer and is more of a threat. Orious basically tells Ceres that Bellicon is keeping the quote-unquote food supply chain going to the Blood Court and challenges Ceres to see how the High Bloods of the Blood Court act once there's no more blood. This is just like so gross morally, but honestly it didn't shock me. That's very on par for Bellicon. We kind of already knew this from the end of Quicksilver when we first meet the Triumvirate, and Bellicon tells Kingfisher and Ceres that he has basically been helping Malcolm feed and grow his army, so not really much of a shock there. The next part of Bellicon's offer is that he would provide shelter and protection from the spread of the rot taking over the lands.
I just want to know how Bellicon thinks he's going to protect everyone from the rot. I'm glad Ceres had the same question, because there's no way he actually could. Unless he secretly has some sort of cure for it, since we know he's, you know, in this alliance with Madra, and he obviously has been making these secret weapons with the dull blades and stuff. But I was like, does he have access to Brimstone himself somehow? Like, how is he doing that? Or how does he think he could do that?
Those are pretty much my thoughts exactly. I sincerely doubt he knows what the rot is or how to stop it. Honestly, I think he was just bluffing in an attempt to manipulate Ceres, which is stupid because Ceres ain't dumb, okay? She's new to Avelia, but not new to the world. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah. The final thing Orious states is that Bellicon wanted Everlayne back at the Winter Palace and for Kingfisher to face a public execution. I really love that Ceres says hell no to all of this, or swearing any type of oath to Bellicon, because he can straight up truly go to hell. Bellicon is a big lying schemer, and Ceres is right not to trust him whatsoever.
Agreed. Also, Bellicon, he's just so stupid for so many reasons. But if he really genuinely wanted a shot at Ceres even considering the offer, then he had to know that she was never going to agree to Fisher's execution. Like, how did he really think that was going to play out? If he really wanted to try and even make her waver, he would have been like, and I promised you, Fisher and all your friends can come and I won't harm them, you know, even if he was lying. But it's just, that was so dumb. He had to know that was never going to work. She's always going to be like, okay, yes, go ahead and execute my mate. Okay, for sure.
This is another example of one of the things about like how the bad situations in this book don't really seem like that bad, because it seems like the risks really aren't that high. Like, outside of the rot spreading or whatever, every interaction that they've had with Malcolm or Orious here or like Madra, I don't know how to explain it. Like, it just isn't.
The stakes aren't high. There's no peril.
Yeah. Right, exactly. And yet it seems like it's supposed to be like this really scary situation. But I'm like, if you had like captured somebody important to them first and you were like threatening their life, then I would be like, okay. Like, I could see why Ceres might be like, oh yeah, I'm going to accept this bargain. But like, outside of that, I was like, there's no reason she was going to agree to any of this. It just seemed.
It was a waste of time. Yes.
Silly. Exactly. Yeah.
There's a lot of false tension building. Like, there should be this tension and we should be invested in the stakes of it. But you knew Sarah wasn't going to die. Even if Fisher hadn't showed up, you knew she was going to find a way to get out of it. And you knew she wasn't going to accept it. So you're like, there's no risk of anything. There's not enough risk. Yeah, you're totally right. In addition to these concessions, Orious also states that Saris would have to serve as Belicon's personal alchemist, and because she is half Fae, she would also have to swear an oath before the Fear Stone. I only noted this because it had not occurred to me until now that Saris now has an option to decide whether she wants to become an Oathbound Fae or not. I feel like she will eventually decide to do it. Doesn't seem super important for her to do right now, but honestly, it would actually be very helpful if she did not, so she could lie. It's like being totally for real. I think she should.
I agree. Yeah. I hadn't really thought about the importance of that. I mean, she's definitely not swearing it like while Belicon's there.
Oh, no.
The other issue we see Orious bring up is the fact that all of the Luperprolia are oath sworn to serve Belicon, although we know from details later that there are loopholes around how and when they could actually be summoned to serve him.
Two things. First, cannot believe this did not occur to me and cannot believe this has not come up before now. I know Saris addresses a solution later and we'll have to talk about it then, but bruh, this could have been a huge problem. Another thing I noted from this conversation is Orius refers to Renfis as Renfis of the Orithian. I do not recall encountering this word before, so I searched the book. This is the first time it comes up in Brimstone, but Renfis is referred to as Renfis of the Orithian a few times in Quicksilver, but it's never explained what exactly that means. I would like to know what that is in reference to. I'm not saying it's super important, but since I was on Renfis alert, I just kind of just locked in on that. Also, just for your own personal research purposes, it's also worth noting in Quicksilver, Orithian is spelt with one R, and in Brimstone, it's actually spelt with two. So just in case you wanted to go back and search for your own research purposes, you would know that. That feels like a notable editing error that should have been caught. I've seen some criticism of this book that it's a bit sloppy in its editing and revision, and I am not a comma queen. I'm not gonna get mad about minor stuff like that, but I don't know, when you're talking about proper nouns, that feels a little important to me.
Yeah. I also noticed that morale is spelled differently from Quicksilver to here. That was one of the major ones that I noticed. I just didn't bring it up because I was like, whatever, it's not that. But since we're talking about some of the word things, I was like, I swear on my life, it was spelled Mirelle in Quicksilver. And then in Brimstone, it's MER. And I was like, what?
Okay,
whatever.
that is so
Again,
funny
because
but when we were doing our Josha notes, when he sees a vision of her, I was typing because I'm kind of a stickler in the notes. I like to spell things correctly. And I was typing Mirelle. And then either I saw your notes or I saw something else. And I even checked my text and I'm like, oh, I must have got it wrong. Okay. Oh, that makes me feel better. See? Okay.
No, yeah.
It's a bit sloppy, especially for proper nouns.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I know who you're talking about, so I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh my God, the spelling error. But it was something that I noticed. So
I feel better venting about that. Thanks.
Anyways, thoroughly enraged, Saris draws Solace, and we also see that in the middle of her shield rune, she now also had a circular rune bisected with an arrow-like shape, which glowed blue as it activated with power. There were a couple notable things that happened during this fight scene. First off, Saris quickly remakes Solace with nothing more than a thought into two short swords, which had Old Fae script along the edges.
I wanted to note here that Saris thinks, I'd planned to reforge Solace into something more manageable, but I hadn't yet had the time. That no longer mattered. I didn't need a forge anymore. Would never need one again. A door had unlocked within me. Behind it, a vast knowledge waited there for me. I only had to think, and the fabric of reality shifted. This seems pretty huge to me for a variety of reasons, okay? It's obviously a huge leap in Saris's magical abilities, yay her, but she also can basically make anything now with just her mind. She quite literally reforged a godsword with nothing more than her thoughts in mere moments. I'm sure there's going to be all kinds of situations where this is important, but also to play devil's advocate, I think this makes her really overpowered. I have some real issues with the balance of magical abilities, and it just feels like Saris is unstoppable, and she's only sealed one rune. It feels like she's the end-all be-all of magic. So how can anyone hope to defeat her? You know what I mean? We're getting into a weird overpower hierarchy territory.
I agree. I will say I think it adds to the whole, why everybody thinks alchemists are so dangerous and why Madra and, the Vadi Vads have been, trying to get rid of them is just because they are quite literally the most powerful beings. in this world once they fully come into their power. But there was a note later that we'll kind of come back to about, it was like briefly in that book about how like there's counterbalances. So I do think that there's going to be something that comes up, or we're going to learn that there is something about using alchemical power that requires some kind of countering balance or some kind of equal and opposite force. We just haven't gotten to it yet.
Okay, that makes me feel better.
Yeah.
Because there has to be some checks and balances. Otherwise, there's no plot, because Sarah can just wave her hands and be like, boom, cured it, boom, fixed it, boom, made it. Like,
yeah, I agree with that.
Okay, good catch.
Yeah, later. It's very brief and we don't touch on it, but I do think we'll start to explore that hopefully a little bit more in the next book or whatever. So anyways, once Belicon's other soldiers attack, they end up drawing what we learn are null blades, specifically made by Belicon to counter the power of alchemists. We see that Ceres is unable to use her alchemy against them and distinctly feels a strangeness from them. We'll come back to the null blades later, but I will say I have a lot of questions about how they're made.
Technically, Ceres was able to manipulate them, but only just barely. It's described she was able to deflect one null blade from the first guard, but only after extreme effort at the very last second, and she like almost passed out as an effect. In relation to this conflict, can I just say, I've said this every episode, but this is a prime example of why it's completely insane to me that they just let Ceres wander around Amentreth completely unguarded. Like literally in the same day, she's had like 3 very dangerous near-death encounters or things that could have gone very badly. Like she just came from the Hazrax. Not only is it insane, it's actually stupid and irresponsible, okay? I get like they don't want her to look weak and stuff, but it won't matter if she's weak if she's dead. Okay. And I'm sorry. It just really pisses me off. I don't know why I'm so hung up on this, but we're not using our brains. We're not using our brains and it makes me mad.
I think it kind of goes back to the whole like, so is Ceres actually super powerful or not? Because like if she's super powerful, then that's not really a problem. Like she can just fight them off. Who cares? She's this powerful alchemist. She'll just sink them away into oblivion and dust, you know what I mean? But if she's not actually the most powerful, then yeah, maybe you should guard her. You know what I mean? But like we're kind of in like these situations where like sometimes she's super powerful and sometimes they're like, you need to practice how to defend yourself. So I'm like, okay, well, which one is it? You know, so I don't know.
Well, I know like 1 minute she's like, I literally can't even pick up Solace because it's too big. And the next she's like, 2 swords. And I took out 5 fake guards by myself. You know, like,
right.
You know.
Yeah. Ceres does a spectacular job battling Belicon's guards. And I love that even though Fisher arrives as well, she continued to finish the job on her own.
I like that too, but I'm gonna be honest, I was really relieved when Kingfisher showed up and helped a little bit because it really seemed like Ceres was cooked. I was real worried. Because you have to remember, Orious can fight too. I mean, he's probably old, but like he's also old and been around for a long time. So either she would have taken the 5 guards, maybe Orious had another trick up his sleeve. So I was actually relieved when Fisher showed up.
Yeah. I thought it was really cool when Ceres produces projections of her runes in the air and then she just like blasts the guards into the wall. I just thought that was a really badass move. But I also thought it was interesting that she sees her veins become silvery when the Quicksilver rune activates. What's going on with that?
I agree. It's weird. Again, they kind of like touch on it a little bit later during the spicy scene, but then they never actually investigate it. So, meh. I do agree it was super cool. But how is this possible? What kind of magic is this? How did she just intuitively know how to do this? Again, I have to ask, doesn't this make her overpowered, right? She's in peril, the rune projects, blast of magic. What is that? She didn't do that. I don't like it.
She just tapping into her well of magic. It seems like alchemists truly can do like whatever. That's my assumption.
Yes.
Because alchemists have like, technically they're channeling power of the gods as far as my understanding goes. And so therefore like they can just kind of do anything.
Whatever they want. Yeah, whatever the hell they want. I don't know. It doesn't sit right with me.
Yeah.
My very deep love of really thoughtful magical world building, this doesn't jive with that. It's incongruous. I'm not for it.
In the aftermath of the fight, Fisher is obviously furious, and I'm a little disappointed he didn't get to kill Orious. But I understand Ceres' reasoning and thought it was honorable that she chose to let him live. Hopefully Belicon is quaking in his boots when he finds out what Ceres did. He better be ready, because she coming for him.
Totally valid. I could not stop thinking about what absolute lunacy it was that Orious literally just saw what Ceres could do, plus Fisher was there, and he still kept running his mouth. He was still like, you stupid bitch. And it's like, really? really? Like, you got to know you got. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. He's dumb. Overall, it's clear Ceres has sealed her Quicksilver rune and will now have a much easier time harnessing that specific element of her power. So that makes one of at least 3 that she needs to seal in total that we know of, at least.
That we know of. Because you're talking about the Tree of Prima, salt, brimstone,
the tree,
Quicksilver.
Yeah.
It seems like there's elemental magic too, water, fire, I'm assuming air and earth. So she has all of those as well. The chapter ends with Carrie telling Ceres they have something that belongs to her. Hint, it's Hayden. Boo. A very unwelcome surprise.
Yeah. All right. So that ends chapter 28. Moving on to chapter 29.
The title of this chapter is Fortunes of the Universe. This is in reference to when Fisher and Ceres are declaring their love for each other. Fisher says, I'd spend the fortunes of the universe to protect you. I'd drain the seas dry, fell every tree. I would sacrifice the sun from the fucking sky and surrender the stars too, if I could. But those things aren't mine to give. All I have is my life. Sorry, I'm laughing because it's so corny. It's so corny. Guys, I love love, okay? But this is just like... It's a little intense. It's a little much.
It's a little intense, yeah.
It's a little like over the top. Like, I'm gonna tell you right now, I love my husband. I'm not cutting down every tree in the world for him. I'm too tired and I like the trees. You know? I'm not gonna do that. I'm not gonna sacrifice the sun. I like to be in the sun. I get seasonally depressed without it. So I don't know what to tell you.
Unrealistic. Okay.
Unrealistic. It's just too cheesy. It's just a little cornball.
All right. So Ceres starts off this chapter worrying about Hayden as she watches him sleep back in college. Fortunately, Taylana assures her she would inform her as soon as he wakes up because Ceres, like all of us, is in need of a big fat nap.
Don't threaten me with a good time. Your girl loves a nap. I probably after this episode, I'm fitting to go nap.
Same.
Not really.
Honestly, yes.
I have to go do something, but if I could,
I will take a nap. I'm tired today. I don't know what it is, but yeah, I'm ready for a nap right now. So
we'll be back later to finish recording, guys. So just hang out.
I also thought it was interesting that Taylana's healing magic was useless on Ceres, but I guess it's just because she is being healed through her own magic. Or maybe it's just that her own magic is healing her, but it's also like shielding her from the effects of any other magic.
This stood out to me too. I'm sure this will get explored more and we'll get a better explanation. But for now, I do think it's related to Ceres' own magic trying to shield her from any and all foreign magic. That makes sense to me. Also, super important follow-up question, and I'm only asking for research purposes. I did block this out so Lorraine could not see, and I also forgot what I wrote. So let's see. Oh, here we go. So does this mean that Fisher's shadow magic won't work on her anymore for, purposes, sexy time purposes?
No, there's no way.
Okay.
There's no way.
Okay, because your girl loves some shadow play.
Yeah. Well, especially if he's just using it as like
what, Sarah? Like, I almost called you Ceres. Like what, Lorraine?
Like what, Ceres?
What do you mean?
Like if he's using it as like the ropes or to hold her, like then it's not harming her, It's just kind of like.
Could you give a little more details? I'm not quite sure I'm understanding what you're saying.
Yeah, we gotta tie him up, tie up.
I know, I'm just messing with you.
My guess would be no, because I also feel like Ceres would be like, don't block this. Like she would tell her magic not to block it. And it would be like, okay, yes, chef.
But wouldn't she tell her magic not to block healing magic?
You would think, but you know what? This book don't make sense. So it's not going to block.
It doesn't make sense.
So.
When Ceres arrives at Fisher's bedroom, we get the most adorable scene with Archer. To be fair, I think everything Archer does is freaking adorable. So I can't remember if I've said this before specifically about Archer's character, but the voice Anthony Palmini does for him is fucking perfect. It is so cute. It's the right balance of my lady, it's just perfect.
Yeah.
And so I think that really enhances my enjoyment of Archer's scenes. And that's partially why I love any scenes with him. And I love this one so much.
I agree. Anthony Palmini has a lot of range. And so far, I think I've liked every voice he's given to characters in this book. And there's not a single one I would change.
Same. I feel like Stella Bloom is also excellent. I love her accent for Ishabel. I mean, obviously her Ceres voice, her voice for Adina. They're both very, very talented. I genuinely like them both enough that I would listen to a book, or I would consider listening to a book just because they're narrating it, because they're just really good. Really good.
I agree.
So. Anyways, Archer is upset because, according to him, there's a way things are supposed to be done, and Ceres was not following the proper procedures and protocols. Archer gets even more upset when one of the other fire sprite picks up a ceramic bird. We learn from Archer that it was Adina's favorite, and it's how Kingfisher got his name. She found the figurine when she was pregnant at a market in Ballard. I noted this because my spidey sense started tingling, and I wonder if this figurine is important, not just because it's how Fisher got its name, but if Edina actually hid something inside of it, maybe like a key or perhaps a slip of paper with its true name on it, something like that. Could also be absolutely nothing. It's an odd thing to highlight. And so I'm just suspicious of anything. When anything gets pointed out, I'm like, that's going to be important later. So maybe it's really nothing.
Exactly.
But maybe it is.
I mean, I wasn't sure if there was going to be like anything stashed inside of it, but obviously, yeah, it's important if it's the reason Kingfisher got his name. I was just thinking that maybe she got some sort of vision of the ornament or something like symbolically important about Kingfisher birds. So then she wanted the ornament for him or something like that. I don't know. But
oh, I like that.
It's important. Yeah.
I think when it has to do with Adina, I just always lock in because she's an oracle and has seen all the past of the future. So you feel like everything she does with intention. It's hard to think about her shopping and be like, this is just so cute. I'm just going to buy this trinket because I enjoy
just out of pure like spontaneity. Yeah. Or just because she likes it. Like, no,
You're like, it must be a sign.
Right.
You know, I think that's the vibe I'm locked into with Adina, you know?
I agree with that. Yeah.
I was giggling to myself when Archer, in his goofy little voice, starts threatening the other sprites and tells them that he will leave them out in the snow and turn them into doorstops.
Oh my gosh.
Poor Archer. He just wants everything to be in a nice order. He's just a baby, and he wants everything to be perfect.
I know. I was kind of surprised by how anxious he is, though, overall. But the explanation later about sprites being replaced, etc., kind of like helped add context for why he was so worked up over everything. But I was kind of like, okay, Archer, you gotta chill out. Like, nobody's mad about this, so like, it's okay. Like, everything's gonna be okay.
I think they're just creatures of habit, you know, and they just want everything to be just so. So, same.
Yeah.
Fisher arrives in his sand-filled boots and admires Ceres's newly forged god swords. He translates the old way writing for Ceres. One sword says Aramar, which means mercy, and the other sword says Selenir, which means honor. I noted specifically when Ceres says, the gods named my swords for me then, and Fisher responds with, or maybe those are traits they decided to bless you with. Both of those traits seem inherent to Ceres's nature, as is evidenced by the mercy she showed Orious. But anytime we start talking about gods, you know we're going to point it out, especially gods blessing them.
Yeah, I think regardless of whether the swords are named for her or they're meant to represent personal traits she's been blessed with, they definitely indicate Ceres is the chosen one and the gods have expectations of her, you know? I also thought maybe the names are meant to foreshadow Ceres showing mercy to someone else in the future who doesn't deserve it, like, I don't know, maybe Madra or Belicon, or in general just conducting herself with honor or doing something particularly honorable later on. I don't know what that would be, but like, yeah. Anyways.
Yeah, like foreshadowing for her character's journey.
Yeah.
Ceres asks Fisher about what Orious has said about him, Lorith and Renfus, Danya, and all the other soldiers at Erin being oath-sworn to Belicon and having to obey his commands. I am very glad that Ceres addressed this because, as with Ceres, this seemed like a huge major concern. Fisher tells Ceres that the wards that protect Kalish prevent him from ordering them to do anything. He also says that as long as they stay in Kalish or Amontreath, Belicon can't touch them. I am a little confused on why Belicon wouldn't be able to control them in Amontreath. Like, let's say hypothetically, Belicon, Ceres, and Kingfisher are all in the same room in Amontreath together. Why wouldn't he be able to command them? I think that he would. My guess is what Fisher means is that it's basically impossible for Belicon to get to Amontreath because of the feeders. Belicon would have to cross the dead fields. Amontreath is basically impenetrable. And so that's what he means, but I was a little confused by that.
I kind of figured that in the case of Amontreath, perhaps just like Fisher's magic doesn't work in Sanisra, perhaps any magic or like magical oath, promise, bond, whatever is ineffective in a place where the magic is different. So since the oaths were made in Avelia, it's tied to the magic there. But I could also just see the fact that, like, as you said, Belicon just can't get to Amontreath and therefore he can't be in the presence to like make that command. So
I agree. I think it could be either. In any case, those are kind of moot points because Fisher also says, and even if we do leave these lands, we would have to be in his physical presence for him to command us. There's no way he's leaving the Winter Palace and then gets cut off by some kissing. Eye roll. So Basically, they do have to be in the same room. Although to me, it's a very bold assumption for Kingfisher to make that Belicon wouldn't leave the Winter Palace. I am kind of thinking this is foreshadowing for something that's going to happen later in the book. Because he just is like, don't worry, Belicon's never going to leave the safety of the palace. But he already did it in Quicksilver. The Triumvirate gathered. And he made himself vulnerable. So I don't know. That seems like, he's like, Belicon will never leave. Like, no, Belicon will. I feel like that seems very arrogant of Kingfisher and doesn't show a lot of foresight on his part.
I do agree there may be some sort of trap laid later. For example, like if Rumfus was caught, like we've been kind of wondering about, since we know he's technically missing at this time based on events later. I don't know, maybe Belicon may lure them to like getting within a range where he could then compel the Lupo Prulia with the oath and all that. Belicon's, he's going to pull something, you know?
Oh, of course. Of course. Well, I still think that each book will address a member of the Triumvirate. So book 1 was Malcolm. I think book 2, honestly, at this rate, feels like Belicon, and then book 3 would be Madra. But we'll see. Then, of course, instead of sleeping to recover or being productive or discussing all the important shit that's happened, like, I don't know, what Orious said, or Elroy knowing about magic and the Fae, or having a giant hidden pool of Quicksilver, they decide to use this time to have sex again. Because it's only been like 18 hours since the last time. Now, listen, I love spies as much as the next person. And again, this is not a criticism of Callie Hart's ability to write a good spicy scene, but my God, do they really need to do it every 40 pages? From a reader standpoint, it is actually to the point where it's disruptive to the plot. Like, a lot of shit is happening from a character standpoint. It's also annoying. I know I keep saying this, but the world is literally ending and these two are screwing each other like teenagers, and it annoys the hell out of me. Okay?
Same.
It's like too much of a good thing. Your first piece of cake tastes great. Your second tastes good. Your third is nauseating because you're eating too much cake in one sitting, right? I'm getting too much. Like you said earlier, they're either doing it or they're thinking about doing it. And it's like, can you please have a thought about each other that is not about wanting to fuck each other raw? Okay, which I also hate when he thinks that or says that. Ugh.
Yeah.
Ugh. Ugh. Anyway, I'm not even saying like don't have them all over each other because I get like they're newly minted mates, but we don't need a detailed spicy scene every time. Do like a little like, and then do like a fade to black or something like that. Leave the insinuation and then he stripped my clothes off and the lights went dark. And then you like hours later after, like do something like that. That's fun.
Yeah. Or like instead of having just like the physical aspect of it, maybe build a little bit more of like the romantic aspect of it. Not like, let's screw every single time we're near each other, but like maybe let's just
cuddle,
support each other and cuddle and like talk about the problems that are going on in the world and how we feel about
Lorraine
them.
wants emotional foreplay. You want emotional foreplay. That's what you want.
Yes, that's exactly. But overall, they just kind of need to chill out.
Mm-hmm. They do.
Again,
they really do.
It feels like it's just kind of thrown in there in the middle of things just because Sarris and Fisher are mates. And I'm like, look, we know that they're mates. You've said it a million times. They're God-bound. Like, please go do something important.
See, I'm just thinking about this now that you're saying it. This is the problem with not doing the slow burn on the mate reveal. Revealing it so quickly in book 1, then you're like, oh, well, now I have to deal with the ramifications of this new mating bond, and this is it. And so that's what happens when you don't drag it out. I'm not criticizing that element because I actually did like that we just like got right to that. But now I'm kind of like, okay, I get it. They're mates. I got it. Cool.
But I feel like there's a lot more for them to explore, like with that bond, even with the mating bond, like outside of the fact that they can mentally communicate. What else do we know about what they can do with each other? Like in the dreams, I guess. But like I feel like that could be used as a way to like, as their bond gets stronger as mates, these other little things they can start sensing about each other. There's other ways to build, I guess, that romance or like emotional aspect of it and still use the fact that they're mates, I guess is what I'm saying.
I agree.
Too much, man. Anyways, there were a couple things that I wanted to note. So first of all, Sarah sees that the Quicksilver rune on Fisher's hand had become solid in a metallic black-blue color. And if I had to guess, I think there is probably some change happening with the Quicksilver and Fisher because of Sarah's and the fact that they are mates and because Sarah has now sealed her own Quicksilver rune. There must be some kind of transfer that's happening to change how the Quicksilver interacts with Fisher because of Sarah's, if that makes sense. And I think that the change we've noticed in how the Quicksilver makes Fisher feel could also be evidence to support that.
Agreed. I think this is a good working theory based on what we know so far.
The second thing is that Sarris thinks, my Prince of Shadows, I had been born into the light, but my salvation had been waiting for me in the dark. I personally feel This continues to add the possibility that Fisher and Styx are connected, and that it foreshadows Fisher and his shadow magic playing a more integral role in the plot later on. Like, something about his magic specifically is also needed to kind of solve or combat the problems that they're facing.
Ooh, yes, I love this connection. And I think we'll talk more about that later because I had a theory about Fisher and Styx.
So this is completely unimportant, but I thought it was really funny when it's described, he blinked at me owlishly, because all I could envision was like a literal screech owl. And it's not like owl stares are actually really that cute. In fact, while I think owls as a whole are wholesome, cute animals, I do find their stares kind of creepy. So I was like, could we describe it differently? You know what I mean?
Like, instead, he stared at me like a hungry wolf.
Like a wolf. He
Like
wanted
a
to
rabid
devour
wolf.
me. He devoured me with his stare.
You know, now that you mention it, I didn't really think about it, but that is a funny description. See, what comes to mind for me is like, you know, the videos or like pictures of owls with their like really big eyes, but they're like kind of more in the cute end and they have that really slow, sleepy blink.
Yeah.
That's very cute, but also very unsexy. So,
yes. Yeah.
During their pillow talk, Fisher makes a joke about knowing Ceres's every thought and how it would probably be all about him. And Ceres responds, "Hey, I do have other things to think about besides you." And to that I say, liar, absolute liar. Please refer to all of my earlier points and complaints for further explanation. I will not explain any further.
Her pants are definitely on fire, that's for sure. The other ominous line I think we should point out is when Fisher delivers us the line containing this chapter's title. "I'd spend the fortunes of the universe to protect you. I'd drain the seas dry, fell every tree. I would sacrifice the sun from the fucking sky and surrender the stars too if I could. But those things aren't mine to give. All I have is my life." Obviously, if you've been following along, I'm sure you can guess the part that really grabbed my attention was the sacrificing the sun from the sky part, because cue all of the whole double suns and Zavar rants I've been on.
You and those damn suns and Sylvarin.
I just like, I'm really fixated on them. Yeah.
I'm really afraid they're not going to mean anything. That's where I'm starting to go. And I'm like, oh, poor Lorraine, all you're worrying about the two suns.
They better do something with that. But yeah, you're right. They probably won't do anything. And it's not even going to matter. So,
well, I must feel very strongly about this quote because I actually basically said the same thing here, that the language is just like over the top. And don't get me wrong, I love fated mates. Okay. That's like the best thing about romanticy. But they just always have to say some corny shit like this. They just can't be like, "I love you." I'm like, "I love you too." He's like, "I would burn everything to the ground for you." And we love the touch her and die. But it's like every time, I'm just inundated with it. And I just, it's just, oh my God, like,
it just feels repetitive.
It's repetitive and it's just like, I don't know. It's not for me. It's not for me. Just keeping it 100.
I think when it's used too much, it just feels unoriginal too. Like, it kind of just feels like you're kind of recycling through like a lot of the same language.
Yes.
Because that's like what's expected of this type of touch her and die kind of energy, you know? And I'm like, you could do something else.
It's not just what they're saying, it's when they're saying it.
That's
there
true.
are certain climatic points in the story before really intense scenes or a battle or something where it hits you harder, right? I'm thinking about like certain scenes in ACOTAR where these really impactful, emotional kind of monologues about their love for each other or different characters or whatever. And it hits differently in the right moment. It's just every day is like the most intense day of love of their lives. And you're like, oh, okay.
Right.
Okay. You know, I don't know. It loses its potency for me.
Same. The chapter, of course, ends on a climax, literally, and my final thoughts for that Ceres thinks our bodies formed a bridge to heaven, and both of us ascended, and she sees another ink transfer to Fisher's collarbone. I do think Ceres and Fisher will meet the gods again, most likely in the process of ending the rot and whatever power they will need to use to do so.
Or, not to rain on your parade, if one of them dies as a reward for saving the universe, the gods will resurrect them or something else like that.
Right. Like dies, quote unquote.
Quote unquote dies, yeah.
Quote unquote dies. But anyways, also in relation to this, the whole ascending to heaven thing makes it sound like they are going to die. But yeah, I feel like in a lot of fantasy books, characters don't actually really die. Instead, their death is more symbolized as like a loss of power or immortality or something like that. So I wonder if Ceres and maybe Fisher too will have to give up their power or something similar to quote unquote save the universe.
It seems like they're really primed for that, especially with Ceres, because she's becoming so overpowered. So in the end, she'll have to sacrifice it all, whatever. Yeah. Also, not to change subjects, but I have to ask, what do you think Fisher's new tattoo is? Because, you know, they get one every time that they do the deed now. And Ceres makes that little like, I'd let him discover it on his own. But then they never talk about it again.
I don't know, honestly. Does he already have a bird?
Yeah, I think he does.
He does. I'm trying to think. What other symbols can we throw on as a tattoo?
One of them got a dagger. I don't know. I was just curious if you had any good ideas.
No, I didn't. Because I didn't care. Okay. All right.
Perfect.
We'll try to keep it jovial, guys. Like, I'll try to turn my Debbie Downer attitude around here. So, okay.
Guys, we're just a little burnt out on this. It's a lot. It's a lot.
It has been a lot, yeah.
We're probably not the only ones that feel this way, right?
Hopefully not.
Message us and make us feel better, please.
Okay. That ends chapter 29. Moving on to chapter 30.
The title of this chapter is Leash. This is in reference to when Carrion and Sirius are discussing the differences in Sirius's bonds and connections to both Callideus and Fisher. Sirius describes her connection to Fisher as calm and peaceful like a well, whereas Carrion asks what the connection with Tal feels like, and Sirius responds with a leash.
This chapter was one of the more exciting ones of this chunk that we covered today because we touched back with Everlayne, and as she thrashes around like she's quite literally possessed by something, there were several descriptions that we, of course, need to talk about.
Real quick before we get into that, when Sirius enters the bedroom, she thinks about how the room is filled with people. She lists them off and thinks, gods, everyone is here. But everyone is in fact not there. You can tell this is where my Renfis tirade started, because where the hell is Renfis? Especially, as we speculated many times, Renfis has romantic feelings for Everlayne. Feels like he would definitely be there. Like anytime he could, he'd be checking on her.
Right.
I know I said it in my overarching thoughts, but it's becoming more and more apparent and suspicious each chapter. Not only is he not there, but like no one's even mentioning him. Okay. And we get relatively frequent status updates on everyone else, like, oh, Lurth is back in Amontreath, while Tal was doing whatever, blah, blah, blah. We even get updates on Ishabal, but nothing on Renfis. This is kind of where this theory kicked off for me, and as it gets brought up later on, I'll bring it up too. But my brain really just can't wrap around what he is doing or what he would be doing and why it hasn't been mentioned. And so, unless it's a very clumsy attempt at covering that Renfis is going to betray them, which I highly doubt that, by the way, but I just can't think of what else is going on. It's played out really weird. I don't know. It annoys me.
He got.
He got. Also, I was dying when Sirius asked Carrion what was going on, and he was like, I was up in the bedroom across the way, absolutely minding my own business. And I knew immediately what he was up to. I knew what he was doing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay, anyways, so back to the descriptions. So Telena describes Everlayne's soul like it's, quote, dressed in shadows. Everlayne has some, like, figure, quote unquote, looking in her eyes. Telena says that she can feel her mind as if she's awake, but her consciousness feels like it's behind a wall or something. Sirius also reaches out with her magic, only to feel the Quicksilver whisper run in response to whatever is going on with Everlayne. Finally, Everlayne speaks in this like creepy possessed voice to say these words: the gate is open, it cannot be closed, the gate is open. So this was all super freaky, but just like Loreth, my men went straight to the rot, and this being a message about where it's coming from or the realm or type of magic that would create the rot. Specifically, I think this may be referring quite literally to a true hell realm, since we've been getting all these references to the fifth gate of hell. But the other gate that also always comes to mind now is Agen Gate. We know from the bonus chapters that there was this giant magical gate that guarded the city of Agen, and that only the fire sprites could touch the gate without being hurt because it was made of iron and they're immune to iron. I don't really know why Agen Gate would be important again, but while I was reading the bonus chapter, Amnam Chakrai said this: you stand upon hallowed ground, but the gate stands ajar. The gate that cannot be touched, the gate that cannot be closed. And that stuck out just because it sounded kind of similar to the warning here about a gate being open again, and I just found that to be interesting considering Agen was a pretty critical place to keep safe from Malcolm's horde and Amnam Chakrai. Also, just in general, we learned that the fire sprites have brimstone, but reading back through that bonus chapter again, we cannot forget that so did Amnam Chakrai, who was a dragon. So, once again, I'm going to come back to the spiel about dragons coming back because they have brimstone, and apparently that could very well be the cure for the rot. Thank you for coming to Theory Corner.
Wow, that was a fantastic TED Talk with excellent research behind it, so excellent job there. Agen Gate, for me, was the first gate that came to mind as well. Just based on context, I'm assuming that's a very bad thing, the way that Everlayne is being possessed and the tone in which it's said. But to be honest, I don't really have any theories on exactly what it is or why or how or who's opening it. So I think this is going to be a wait and find out situation.
Yeah. In addition, I wonder if the figure in Everlayne's eyes, and whose voice I'm assuming took over to deliver said message, was the original creator of the rot, or maybe plays a larger role in how it came to be. I've got questions because so far we've been thinking Maja created these infected feeders and also sent them from Zulbaran, but maybe she didn't. So were we getting kind of a sneak peek message from the true baddie bad?
Okay, I wondered about that also. My first thought was that it was Adina possessing her again to give Fisher and Saris a warning about whatever gate is open. But obviously, Everlayne seems really scared, and the presence that's overtaking her seems generally evil, and we know Adina isn't, so that didn't really add up to me. My next thought was that what if Adina was also there in the Shadow Realm with Lane and whatever other evil force was there also? And they were basically battling to take over Lane, and Adina won just for those few seconds, but only, long enough to give them the message that the gate is open. Because warning about the gate seems like it's helping them. It sounds like a warning. So I kind of wondered if there were two people who were battling to possess her, and Adina was like, no, and was only able to hold on to Lane for just a few seconds.
Maybe so. I could see that too. So Menier hypothesizes that the rot stems from no vein of magic that he'd ever heard of, and that it was either very old or very new. Furthermore, he says it could be that as this rot approached Kalish, it affects Everlayne somehow. I feel like this adds to the idea that the rot originated from a different realm, perhaps this hell realm they've been talking about rather than Zulbaran, but more importantly, it's spreading very quickly and they are running out of time. Given the rot spread, Fisher creates a new game plan. He, Saris, and Carrion would go back to Amantreath for books/research. Danya would get all the soldiers moved from the border to Kalish, and Lorith would go get Ishabal from Nevercross to help Taelena with Everlayne's situation, and then Taelena would stay to watch over Hayden.
Just to be consistent, Laura says, we need to find Ren, and then gets cut off by Fisher. Fisher says, not yet. He needs to warn as many of the villages and the small holdings along the coast and into the forest as he can. I guess technically then this does address where he is, although I find it extremely unsatisfactory. Ren is a member of the Lupoprolia, and they are in the apocalyptic crisis. And so I find it odd they would not have his exact location pretty much all the time, and also not bring him back for this. Literally anyone could ride the coast and warn the villages. Any rando would do. So why have Ren do it? And why not just open shadow gates for him? It just feels inconsistent with the urgency in world building. It just seems like a waste of time, like a fool's errand, basically. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah.
I'm hung up on it. I know, but it just drives me crazy. I'm really hung up on it.
Saris, Fisher, and Carrion arrive back at Amantreath to find the tomb barred and guarded by none other than Nicole and Antarin, whose hands still hadn't fully grown back yet. But they're just scared off, so it was no big deal. Before they split up, Fisher asked Carrion where his godsword Simon is, and I don't know why, but I find it kind of suspicious. Something about Carrion hiding it somewhere felt weird to me because I want to know why. Why were you hiding it? Why didn't you just have it with you? And why didn't you want to tell anybody where it was?
Oh, dude, totally. Especially the way it's described, because Saris notices that his cheeks are turning red. He gets all weird and secretive. And I don't think it means anything nefarious or anything like that, but it does make me very curious because he's like, none of your business. Don't even worry about it, But I will note that when they go to protect Archer, it does say that he had Simon with him. So, but it was kind of a weird response. He was like, oh, don't worry about my guard sword. Worry about your own god sword. Okay, just tell us where it is.
I don't know. Yeah, it was really bizarre.
It was really bizarre.
As Saris and Carrion walk through the halls to find Tal, they discuss Saris's connection with him because he sired her, and I thought it was hilarious that Carrion was confused about her sharing a bond with both Tal and Fisher. I did think it was interesting that this bond with Tal allows her to experience many of the same sense-related memories, like how she knows that the door leading to Tal's rooms would squeak. But that is a very distinct type of bond to have because they just know experiences of the other, and I definitely think that would be weird to be able to sense that with your friend or something, or this other person, but not with your mate,
It's kind of weird. I get that. It's kind of weird. Just as Saris is about to open the door to Tal's room, none other than Zovina appears, which was actually good because Saris had a bone to pick with her. It was also good because Zovina decided to fuck around and find out, and we got to watch Saris eviscerate her with her words. I really enjoyed that.
Same.
I, for one, thoroughly enjoyed the scene. I was absolutely cackling when Sarah said, in Amantreath, is it considered incest if you sleep with your maker? Because it sounds to me like someone was fucking daddy. And I was like, pew, 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 pew.
That was a good one.
Sick.
That was pretty sick burn.
Yeah.
I particularly like that not only was it just like a really funny diss, but also Zovina couldn't do a damn thing about it because Sarris was just like she just had her like on lock. Like she couldn't attack her. She had to be bowing,
What was she gonna do? What was she gonna
extra
do? Ain't
dismissive because
nothing.
of that. So it was hilarious.
And she probably was sleeping with Malcolm. So what is she gonna do?
Yeah, true.
You know?
True that.
Zovina got
Yeah.
got. I'm here for it. Zovina is the keeper of missives, and so Sarris decided to address Foley's missing letters. Zovina revealed that she purposely did not deliver them because Foley was shunned and did not deserve the privileges of the member of the Blood Court. Sarris rectifies this immediately and commands her to personally deliver all the letters to him today. First of all, I just have to say I was right. I was right. And that felt great. Okay, we speculated on this in a previous episode. And well, yeah, I was right. That was it. That's all I wanted to say about that. Second, I love that Sarah's took the time to address this. Arguably not the most important thing, but I found the chapter later between Fisher and Foley very touching. And I think it'll be very healing for Foley to read those letters.
Freaking Zovina. You definitely called that. I hope Foley gets some closure about his past and can finally just realize that he should go back home to Avelia rather than freaking hiding out in Amatrius Library for another 1,000 years or something stupid. So I also felt like, again, this was just kind of like a silly thing. I just don't think it was important.
Did we really need it?
Did I need this whole interaction with Zovina just to reveal that? I don't know. Anyways.
Yeah, it could have happened off screen. You know, like Sarah could have been like, send this message to Zovina. And then later Foley could have been like, oh, thank you for having her send the letters or something like that, you know? Before things could escalate any further between Zovina and Sarris, Tal's door swung open. And that was not the only thing swinging. See what I did there?
Yeah.
Standing before them was a totally stark naked Taladeus.
Dude, this was like such a what the fuck moment. It was so unexpected. I didn't even know how to react to it because I was like, what? Like, what? Why? It was very awkward.
It was a little awkward. I agree. It was just like, oh, okay. I don't know. I feel like it didn't add humor to the moment. Like maybe that's what she was going for, but it didn't. It was just like kind of uncomfortable.
Yeah, exactly.
Honestly, it would have been funnier if that would have been Carrion.
I agree. Anyways, we're going to end it there. So that ends chapter 30. Moving on to chapter 31.
The title of this chapter is Vapor and Smoke. This is in reference to the conversation Foley and Fisher have. Fisher asks Foley if he's still a member of the Lupo Prolia, and Foley responds, yes, sometimes when I dare to dream of a reality in which I still might be good. Fisher then tells him, dreams are just vapor and smoke. They mean nothing unless you're willing to live them. You are good. And I love that.
Aww,
your girl loves
very
it.
Very sweet. Yes. So the start of this chapter was truly adorable, and I love seeing Fisher basically fuss over and baby Onyx. He's singing lullabies and conjuring up a piece of trout or salmon, I guess, from the depths of his magic. And I was just thinking, I mean, Onyx is just Kingfisher's baby now. He's his. Once again, though, I have to point out that despite Kingfisher saying his magic is useless in Sanus Roth and he can't ward Sarris's chambers with it, somehow he's still able to access some deeper well to make a piece of trout appear.
First, 100% agree. The Onyx Fisher sheen is chef's kiss. I think I've said this before, but it 100% reminds me of those reels where they're like my dad or husband and the pet he absolutely did not want. And then they're both like in robes with cucumbers on their eyes, or like they're holding the animal and feeding it like a baby with a bottle, you know? And that's now Fisher 1,000,000%. Second, thank you for pointing that out about the magic, because I was going to say the exact same thing. I don't like to criticize, but this feels like bad writing and or inconsistent world building. So I guess moving forward, we need to assume that Fisher can't use his god sword magic or his shadow magic, but sure, miter magics are totally fine. That seems... I don't like it. I don't like it. It's not good writing.
Yeah.
For me, it's not good writing.
Yeah. Fortunately for us, things only got cuter because Onyx returns the favor and offers Fisher a pine cone. And I was like, oh, what a sweet baby angel. Very cute. Later on, Fisher goes to the library to speak to Foley, and he encounters Guru there. And I just had a thought occur to me. So if Fisher is some, quote, Prince of Shadows, and the theory of him maybe being like the son of the god of shadows or related somehow is true, then what if Guru is actually a creature of the same, like, under shadow world, because he is quite literally made of shadows? Not to mention, Fisher even makes this observation: it became a thing of ink and darkness again and disappeared into the long shadow I cast across the moth-eaten rug. I felt no different. Aside from having just seen it happen with my own eyes, I had no evidence that the cat had just merged with me somehow.
Oh my gosh, yes, 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 yes. We don't get a ton of page time with Guru, but he doesn't seem like a super friendly or outgoing type of cat. So the fact that he instantly warms to Fisher and actually helps him by leading him to Foley makes me feel like there's some kind of connection there. Plus, I mean, they're both made of shadows or, have access to shadows, whatever. You get what I mean.
Yeah. Upon finding Foley, we learn that Foley has been a lured son. His father, Warwick Briarstone, had been an advisor to King Ruric, and the Briarstones were formerly second only to the Diantheses in power and pride. It's pretty crazy that Foley's family was the second most powerful one after the Diantheses, and it makes me wonder what power Foley had as a Fae and or what power he still has. I also was wondering if Foley will come back and take up the role of advisor to Carrion once he is restored to the rightful throne.
Yeah, that definitely really threw me for a loop. I was not expecting that at all. It definitely makes me feel like Foley's going to continue to become more and more important as a character as we progress through the series. Originally, when he was introduced, I thought he'd fall more in line with being like a Lorith or Renfist or even a little less important like Danya. But now I'm thinking he's actually going to continue to increase in importance just because of his knowledge, access to the library, and all of that. Foley and Kingfisher have a very emotional and heartfelt conversation about the past, and here are the key takeaways from their conversation. First, I thought the way Fisher described the forging of their relationship was really touching. I think that Callie Hart does really, really well at writing relationships between characters, the history, the emotions, all of that, and I feel like she's able to do it in a really quick way, and so like, 1 minute you're not feeling the connection, you're not enjoying the character, and then you're rooting for them. And so that kind of happened for me with Foley. This was kind of a transformative chapter for him, like seeing Foley be vulnerable, seeing him be emotional, and really kind of understanding Foley's fear and his hard facade. And so I thought she did a really good job capturing that. And so I'm not like a Foley stan, but I'm open to it.
Yeah.
As long as he fixes his behavior.
I agree. It's nice to see that despite everything and the time spent apart, their friendship was strong enough to help them overcome all of that time apart, and that hopefully they can go back to being the Lupo Prolia together again.
Together forever. Next, the topic of Sarah's comes up, and Foley asks Fisher if it's real. The mating bond, the god bindings, etc., and Fisher confirms that it is and that he really does love her. I thought it was very funny how Foley was literally just like, well, all right then. And like, it's settled. And he's like, okay, you say so. Next, Fisher tells Foley he wants him to come back to Kalish, and Foley is horrified by the suggestion and tells Fisher that he can't because he is a monster and worried that the temptation of blood would be too much for him. And this is really the core of Foley's character and his character's internal conflict. During this part of the convo, he also tells Fisher how he eats and stays alive now. Not super important or relevant, but Lorraine and I did discuss this at length in the last episode, and we got our answer here. Basically, he just hunts small animals and drinks from them like a cup, which is, kind of gross. But, gotta do what you gotta do to survive, I guess.
Yeah, it makes sense, though. Like, how else would he get blood? So I guess small animals it is.
Anyways, Fisher asks Foley when was the last time he'd killed someone by feeding on them, and Foley admits he hadn't done it since Adjun, which was over 1,000 years ago, and also literally the day he turned a vampire, which pretty much proves Foley is a saint as a vampire. Like, not one other blip other than, like, the moment he woke up as a vamp. I mean, that's kudos to him, I guess. To prove his point, Fisher pricks his finger and drops blood on the table. Foley freaks out, and so to distract him, Fisher takes out the box holding Joshin and tells him about the encounter he and Carrion had with him and the deal that they made. Foley finds the courage to go to the table, but instead of being tempted by the blood, he agrees to keep the box with Joshin in it until Fisher wants it back and asks Fisher to tell him about the secret Joshin told him. I feel very strongly that Foley's vast knowledge and access to the Amontraith library for the last 1,000 years has made him absolutely critical to the plot, and I feel very strongly he's going to help them crack the code on the secret and figure out what it means. So I think we'll see more conversation about that later.
Yeah, that was my first thought in relation to this as well. There's no way he wouldn't know useful information, and I'm assuming he must know something about Madra or whoever the Queen Joshin refers to is, or he'll be able to research something, so... All right, that ends chapter 31. Moving on to chapter 32.
The title of this chapter is The Thing About Learning. This chapter title is a little more ambiguous compared to most of the others, but I believe that it is in reference to all the information Ceres is about to learn from Edina's secret book about alchemy. Carrion and Ceres enter Tal's room, even though he was entertaining some guests and they were just, quote, enjoying a glass of wine.
I did think it was hilarious that Carrion just wants to partake in Tal's sex party, like, so bad. He's like, how do I get in? How do I participate? But more specifically, Both Carrion and Ceres do a double take at the fact that Tal is managing to keep up with 7 Fae females at once. Because honestly, I mean, it's kind of impressive. I'm like, how would you do that? It takes a lot of energy to say.
It is a lot. That is a lot. Like 1, 2, 3, 4. After 3, I felt like it gets real crazy. It gets real crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's not enough hands, I don't know.
I just don't know.
I'll have to have a special bonus episode on the logistics of that. We'll crack the code.
How is Tal doing?
How do? Carrion definitely wanted to be invited to the wine soiree, and during that conversation, Talladega refers to him as Dianthus instead of Carrion, which elicited a very strong reaction from Carrion. Saracen thinks about the fake custom of not naming their children until their first birthday, and that Rorick and Amelia never got to name Carrion. I do wonder if in secret before Amelia gave Carrion to Finran, that's Kingfisher's father, if she quickly named him and told only Finran, but then he died. I think maybe part of the next book, or maybe this one, but I doubt it, will be to actually discover Carrion's true name, and that may be part of his character's journey in like owning who he is and, taking over the Everlayne throne and all that. So that did stick out to me because the true name thing seems to continue to be important in the series.
Yeah, I'm kind of in the middle on this one. Like, they must have had some names like picked or something before everything went down with Bellicon. But then on the other hand, maybe they really didn't. Or if they did, it's some like whispered secret to the Quicksilver and only that and the gods know it or something crazy like that. So we'll see. We'll just have to wait and find out what Carrion's name is, I guess.
Carrion seems very uncomfortable and somewhat sad about Ceres offering to call him Dianthus, and I think this is indicative of Carrion's conflicted feelings about being the heir to the Everlayne throne. I think we're going to see more character development and internal conflict about this from Carrion as we continue to read.
Yeah, that's a good prediction. Carrion clearly feels a pull and a connection to Avelia, but simultaneously does not seem particularly concerned with ruling at all. So there's definitely the juxtaposition of like duty versus destiny versus choice at play when it comes to Carrion's future.
Talladega then shows Ceres the null blade he recovered from the tomb. He tells Ceres he wanted to be rid of it as soon as possible because it made him feel frankly suicidal. He also tells her that he had never heard of a null blade and strongly encouraged her to get on a horse and ride somewhere and throw it in a dark, deep hole. So a few things about this. First, I find it extremely hard to believe he had never heard of a null blade. Talladega is well over 1,000 years old and a very high-ranking member of the Blood Court. He's had access to the knowledge of Amontreath, the library, and was extremely close to Malcolm. I highly doubt Malcolm wouldn't have known about null blades. It just seems very odd to me that he would not know anything about it at all. That seems unlikely.
Unless it was like a secret side project of Bellicon, because it makes the vampires feel bad too. And I can't imagine that Malcolm would be okay with a weapon that could kill him being like mass produced like that. But on the other hand, if Malcolm also wanted to be more powerful than an alchemist, and same with Bellicon and Madra, then perhaps Bellicon did share that knowledge with them in secret and Malcolm then just like kept it from Tal. But yeah, I don't know. Something is kind of weird about that. So
I could see that. I think that's a reasonable conclusion if Malcolm knew about it, but
yeah.
Next, I also find it weird that instead of wanting to learn more about the blade and how it was made and why it has such a strong catastrophic effect, he's like, whatever, go throw it in a hole. If it made him feel like that just from touching it, can you imagine what would happen if you actually were stabbed with it? So it feels like that's definitely something worth looking into so you can figure out how to counteract it or protect yourself. Because it's obvious it has some extreme magical properties. So being stabbed by it wouldn't just kill you. It would probably trap your soul, trap your power, do something horrible. So we should probably explore that. We should probably learn more about that.
Yeah, that was the more concerning thing to me. Like, I could see him not knowing anything about the null blades, but then to not care at all about a weapon that is even more dangerous to vampires than like silver or quicksilver is crazy. How can you not care about that? That was the part that I felt was more like a double take moment for me. So
agreed. They're interrupted when Yannicka appears, who was not just some dressmaker, but the royal master tailor, and was there to fit Ceres for her gown for the Evenlight ball. Ceres tells Talladega that she ain't going. She don't have time for a silly ball. But Tal insists she must go as ruler of the Blood Court, and because she has to preside over the evening and officially open the celebration, and if she does not, it will be seen as shirking her duties, which Ceres loves to do. I get she doesn't want to be queen, but it's important for her to hold her seat of power. So she's put a little effort in.
Dude.
Instead of maybe spending so much time with Fisher naked. So
being like, I don't want to be here. Open a shadow gate. Let's go to Kamish. And I'm like, girl, Like,
girl. Taladeus also tells her it is now doubling as a selection night for the new Lord of Midnight to replace Areth, who, if you remember, was killed by Fisher at Ceres's coronation. To be honest, I kind of forgot about that, and I'm very curious to see who Ceres will end up picking as a new Lord of Midnight, because pretty much all of the High Bloods she has encountered massively suck, and they all hate her, so there's like not really anyone they can trust. So I'm kind of interested to see how that's going to go down.
As a whole, I just feel like there's all these important court politics things in Sanisrot that Ceres is supposed to do, and yet it doesn't actually seem like it matters, despite, for example, Tal being like, you really need to go to this ball and make all these decisions for it, but then she immediately leaves and like barely does any prep. But there's also like no repercussions. She'll just be like, okay, sure, Tal, and then just leaves. But yes, I also want to know who the new Lord will be, because, I mean, I've got nothing. Like, I don't even know who the options could even be. What would be the role, you know, and what for? Plus, I would like to reiterate, why do there have to be 5? Why? Why does it matter?
Because of the way it is. The way it is.
I want to know freaking why.
No, Lorraine, you're never going to get the answer to that, honey.
I know I'm
We're
not.
really going to get answers with the major plot points. Finished with Tal, Ceres decides to take the Null Blade to the library to study it because of all the reasons I listed earlier. And let me just say thank you, Ceres, for using your brain. Thank you so much, because I strongly agree with researching the blade.
While Ceres takes it to the library, she describes feeling like her leg was numb and that her runes ached, pain shuttling up and down her arm in waves. We'll talk more about the blades later when Archer gets attacked, but it seems like the Null Blades don't just counter other magic, they kind of like absorb and consume it, just like the infected feeders, which I find interesting.
And problematic also.
Right. Yeah, that too.
As Ceres made her way through the stacks to Fisher and Foley, a paper Stargazer flitted around her. As she continued through the library, more and more Stargazers appeared until there were quite literally hundreds. This kind of freaked Ceres out, so she took off running to try and get away from the paper birds, but they followed and formed a constellation. Ceres was amazed until one lone Stargazer flew towards her and sliced her cheekbone. After that, it was a scene straight out of a horror movie where all the birds went crazy and began unfolding and unfurling in midair until they formed a book. But not just any book. It had a navy blue cover with a silver butterfly on the front, and it was all about alchemy. It was the book Adina had told Ceres about, and there was even a little note from her to Ceres. So, first and foremost, Lorraine, but mostly you, called that shit. You called that shit early, okay? And I'm so proud of you. You figured that out so quickly. Good job.
Woo! I will say, I thought like one of the Stargazers would contain important information. So when quite literally all of them came together to make a book, I was like, oh, duh. Like, I didn't think it was going to be all of them. I thought it was just going to be like one little piece of paper that would have a clue or something. But now seeing all of them come together, I'm like, oh, duh. Like, it makes so much sense that it would just all be one book, you know?
Obviously, I was excited, but this did prompt a thought for me. Remember a few chapters ago when that little bird followed her out of the library and lost its mark of magic? We know Ceres tried to take it back into the library, but nothing ever happened. It did not come back to life. What if that sheet is missing from the book? And if it is, you bet your ass it'll likely be the most critical sheet in the entire damn book that Ceres will need later. Like, I could see it being like, and Ceres, no matter what, do not, under any circumstance, do, and then that'll be the next page, and that's the one that's missing.
Oh, yeah.
As soon as I had that thought, I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. So maybe it's not. But I'm like, if it lost its spark of magic, what happened to it?
I don't know. That's a good thought, though. Honestly, I just figured we'd never see that bird again. But now I'm like, oh, she better go retrieve it. She better go revive it somehow. So I swear to God, if it's like a missing page of important stuff, I'm going to be really bad. I'm going to be really bad.
We don't need any more obstacles, okay? Just let it be.
Right. Ugh. I'm also just really trying to figure out how in hell Adina keyed the books to Ceres and used her blood as the identifier when Adina died long before Ceres existed. Like, that's pretty witchy to me. Like, that feels like witchcraft, but I don't know how she did it. Because, like, it had to cut her to know who she was. But I was like, how would Adina know? Like, how would you tie that together? She'd have any, like, nails or hair or skin. No DNA of Ceres. So how did she do it?
That is some witchy shit. I agree.
How did she do it in this magical world where magical things happen? Why was there no DNA used? Okay. I also wanted to draw attention to the few lines Ceres reads from one of the pages. It said, in most cases, the power power is too great, the alchemist will need to surrender, ... often painful. Historically, it was recommended that a counterbalance be used as a kind of alchemical overflow mechanism. Obviously, we need more context and information, but this makes it seem like an alchemist's power requires some kind of countering force. Usually in fantasy books, as we kind of discussed earlier, the ways that this occurs can be in a variety of ways. For example, maybe there's some kind of physical and life cost that's draining health or like stealing life from other living things. Perhaps there's like a strict equal exchange of magical energy. There could be an emotional or mental toll, like slowly eroding sanity, or there's also like the opposing forces situation where like there's an equal amount of dark magic or chaos that's created from use of a lot of like strong magic. Or finally, it could just be like the limiting resource from which magic stems from. So I wonder what Ceres's counterbalance will be. This overflow mechanism makes it sound like she needs maybe even some kind of like object to like store or channel extra magic into. So then I was like, are her swords the overflow mechanism? There was even a part of me that kind of wondered, I wonder if the rot as a whole is like the counterbalance for the use of alchemical magic, because alchemical magic is technically like god magic. If my assumptions about like how it's channeled are correct, then it's kind of like channeling the power of the gods, basically. And so is use of that simultaneously creating this dark rot magic? But I don't know.
Those are good thoughts. That's a really good catch. Honestly, I was just so excited about the book that I didn't even like pay attention to the little scraps of sentences she saw. So,
snippets, yeah.
I think you're right. Like you mentioned earlier, I think we'll probably get more into that as we continue. Kingfisher appears just as the book forms, and Sarah's panicked because she remembered Adina's warnings about not giving the book to Fisher or even letting him know it exists. But then she thought about everything Fisher means to her and everything he had done and immediately showed him the book. And I have to be totally honest here, I can't fault her for this because I would have also caved immediately. I would have handed it over. I would have. I know myself. So Lorraine, what would you have done? Would you have forked it over?
Yeah, I probably also would have caved. But I think it's funny that Adina wrote that specifically knowing it would trigger Ceres to want to show Kingfisher, which is actually what she wanted her to do. So she was like playing mind games with her, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have some thoughts about that. We'll discuss that. Fisher takes the book and reads the first page and then gives it back to her and tells her he trusts her and his mother and that the book is for her and her alone. And he knows that she will do the right thing with the information when the time comes. I will admit, on a first read, I was confused why Fisher handed it back so easily and so quickly. But then as soon as I read the next chapter, it all clicked and it made sense. I was like, oh, okay, I get it.
Yeah, I just kind of figured even before we read the next part that he gave it back to her because his mother's message was like, give it back. All right. That ends chapter 32. Moving on to chapter 33.
The title of this very short chapter is No Regrets. This is in reference to when Adina reassures Fisher not to grieve, that her soul has stayed on this side of the veil for so long. She says, I have no regrets. I love you. I am proud of you. And I was like, oh my God, damn. I will tell you that did make me tear up a little bit.
It was very sweet. All I could think about was no regrets. No regrets.
Leave it to you to root an emotional moment between mother and son.
I had to keep myself entertained. Some way, somehow.
You really did. You're a trooper. This chapter is very short and heartbreaking. It is a letter from the book Ceres found that Adina left for her. The letter is addressed to Fisher as a goodbye and a gentle warning not to read any further. Adina tells Fisher that she has seen many paths for both Fisher and Ceres, but the one that proves their bond is the strongest is the one in which Ceres gives Fisher the book. We'll talk about this in the next chapter, but I am kind of with Ceres. It does feel a little bit like a tricky test of Adina to basically tell her it will damn them all if she gives Fisher the book, but to also include in this note that it says that their bond is the most strong if she does. It kind of puts Ceres in a lose-lose position. I know that's not Adina's intention, but it still kind of sucks. It's kind of a crafty position to be put in.
Yeah, I kind of just interpreted it all as like psychological stuff. And that I think she wanted Ceres to give Fisher the book ultimately as a sign of trust because she was told not to give him the book, but she did because she can't bear to keep anything from her mate. And in doing so, it solidifies their trust in each other. And now Fisher knows even more so that being there for Ceres is his one and only job moving forward, if that makes sense. So.
Oh, I see. Yeah, it's like I said, everything with Adina gets confused because she's seen so many paths. So you're like, is she always doing the things she needs to manipulate it in the right way? So it feels manipulative because it is, but for the right reasons, it's kind of a weird
right. Yes.
position. Yeah. Adina then reassures Fisher not to grieve that Adina's soul remained on this side of the veil for so long because it was necessary and she had no regrets because she got to watch her son grow up. This letter overall was very touching, and it really did make me emotional to see just how much Fisher's mother did and still does love him. I am wondering if now that the book is found, if we will see any more of Adina or if her soul can now finally move on to the afterlife and she can be at peace. Like if all of her manipulations are kind of over and now she's like, you have this book and the rest is up to you. So we'll see what happens.
I'm hoping this means that her soul can finally move on, but I don't think we're done with all of her shenanigans. Like, there's bound to be other things she put in place in preparation of guiding Fisher and Ceres to the best possible path, you know?
She probably did. Contingency plans, you know?
Yes, yeah. All right, that was a very short chapter, so that ends chapter 33, moving on to chapter 34.
The title of this chapter is Very Wrong Indeed. This chapter is also not as explicit in its meaning, but I think it is in reference to several different elements of this chapter. First, I think it's a reference to how the Null Blade behaves and feels very wrong. Multiple characters that interact with it describe it that way. Next, I think it's a reference to how Carrion thinks that the people of Avelia don't want or care for him, and Archer informs him that he is very wrong indeed about that. I like that version.
Yes.
Last but not least, personally, I think the best reason for the chapter title, it is very wrong indeed that nasty feeder, her poor baby Archer, okay? It's wrong.
This is by far the most important one, okay? This is the most important. How dare that feeder hurt him?
How dare he? Ceres was kind of pissed about Adina's little test and itching to read the book, but she was constantly bothered with questions about the preparations for the Evenlight Ball. Fisher arrives and Ceres tells him she was delegating all the ball preparations to Tal and wanted to go to college for the night. Again, shirking her responsibilities as Queen of the Blood Court. You said it, not me, but yeah. I said this in a previous chapter, but again, I totally get why Ceres was kind of pissed about Adina's note. It kind of makes her look bad no matter which choice she made, because you could argue both paths are an act of love. One, she gives him the book because she loves him and trusts him and doesn't want to keep secrets from him. Or two, she loves him so much she wants to protect him. And Adina's warning was pretty ominous. She basically was like, you'll both die if you give it to him. So her not giving to him is a way to keep him safe. And so, but Fisher knows by reading the book that she went against it. I don't know. It's not a good look. I don't think that Adina or Fisher would have seen it in a bad way no matter what choice she made, but I still don't like it.
That's fair. Honestly, I'm just surprised that Ceres wouldn't realize that as a freaking oracle, Adina would see what Ceres would do. And so everything she was doing was intentional, and therefore she made the right decision no matter what.
That's true. Next, do not ever invite me to the Evenlight Ball at Sannisroth. I'm not here for it, okay? That shit sounds so fucked up, okay? This is why I drink Dr. Pepper. There's no risk that it's laced with a virgin's blood or anything else creepy like that, okay? It's in a can. It's sealed. I drink it. I'm happy. There's no risk of any of that.
Be careful. You're going to get an ad for some Halloween-style Virgin's Blood Dr. Pepper now while you're scrolling through
Virgin's
Instagram.
Blood Dr. Pepper.
Yeah. The Halloween edition. But yeah, I agree. Like, they're probably out there trying to drink newborn human baby blood or something. So
yeah, that was...
Don't like that.
Shocking detail. Last, since I am on high alert for Renfis Watch, Fisher does say he would open a Shadowgate for Renfis too. He's bound to have reached Ballard by now, which, okay, maybe, but something still seems weird to me. Also, if he's opening a Shadowgate for Renfis to come back to College, why doesn't Renfis show up? So I'm just adding to that.
Yes, the spidey senses have been sufficiently tingled. They've been tingling.
Don't say the word tingles. Like that.
I do. I like it.
Oh my God. Okay. We've gotten so off track here. Okay. This is such a weird conversation. I'm just thinking, if you zoom out, this is a weird conversation, a weird episode. It's weird. If you're still here, thank you. Back at college, Carrion and Ceres are in the forge studying the Null Blade. Ceres notes that Fisher can't even affect the blade at all with his magic, and it could not be shattered with a god sword, which in the recorded history of Avelia's, no weapon has ever withstood a direct strike from an Alchemarian blade. So yeah, I'd say that's pretty concerning, especially considering Bellicon is almost certainly arming his armies with these blades. Also, I'm very curious as to what these blades are made from and what process they're made with, because they just seem invincible, and also this otherworldliness and weirdness. Unfortunately, I really have no theories about what those processes could be.
I think the point about even god swords having no effect definitely makes me feel pretty strongly that the magic used to create them came from a different world entirely, or one that just like fundamentally opposes the world where the gods oversee and can channel their magic into. Like it's just like this different place. Because that's really the only reason for why I could feel like the god swords wouldn't be able to do anything.
That's a good point. Yeah, I think that's the best theory, honestly, so far, because I just can't think of what else it would be.
Right.
Carrion tries to tell Saris they should basically just not worry about the blade until they actually needed to, but Saris turns it right back around on him and says, like how you're doing with your birthright. And I was like, pew, 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 pew. Saris not pulling any punches, baby. Carrion expresses a lot of apprehension about his claim to the throne. He tells Saris that the people of Velia probably wouldn't want him because they don't even know him. As he's saying this, Archer appears and tells Carrion that he's wrong, and in many households, they offer daily prayers that the Dianthus heir will return. It's obvious this makes Carrion emotional and unsure about the whole situation. I did mention this earlier, but I really think that Carrion is continuing to move more front and center as a character, and his storyline is going to continue to grow in importance. And I'm happy about this. I'm all for Carrion page time and character development. I love him. He's my favorite character. So I'm happy about this. Him and Archer, the dynamic duo.
Oh, yeah, I agree that all roads lead to Carrion being critically important, especially as it relates to the Dianthuses being the most powerful line of magical fae and the symbolism of his family returning to the throne and all that. So
Saris asks Archer how long he's been here because she wants to ask him about Adina, but poor Archer thinks she's asking for an entirely different reason. This broke my heart. Apparently, it is customary when there's a new lady of the house, she often wants to replace existing staff with her own staff, and poor sweet baby Archer thought Saris was implying that he should move on to a different post. And I can just only imagine the panic that seized Archer. We know that he lives to serve, and I mean that literally. He genuinely loves Kalish and taking care of its residents, and so I'm surprised he actually did not burst into flames.
yeah, I think Archer would literally rather die than leave Kalish. Like, that's how dedicated he is to Fisher's family, and I love that about him.
Me too. Archer tells him about Adina, and a few things stood out to me. First, Archer tells him that Adina was an oracle, which we know already, but we didn't know this. Some seers become distant as their gifts grow. They know too much, they see too much, but not Lady Adina. She remained exactly who she had always been. This is some interesting world building about seers, and I find it especially interesting that Adina was not afflicted by this, given that she seems to have seen quite a bit, as is evidenced by her previous drawings of Saris and the preparation for Saris's entrance into Fisher's life, and just all the cryptic things she has said about the path that lays ahead, the book. I'm surprised she didn't kind of like disappear into herself, as Archer is describing here.
Yeah.
Then he says that she used to love coming to the forge even though she knew absolutely nothing about metalwork, and that she would say, quote, that she was visiting a friend, end quote. Archer contends that he didn't really know what that meant, but of course, instead of giving us more info, he gets distracted thinking about the flowers Lady Adina used to love and decides to run out of the forge to go get some. So that part really especially stood out to me, because why the forge? And who the fuck was she talking to? And how often? It seems like she was going there a lot. So I tried to think about it, tried to think about what we know about Adina, Finran, all of that. My first and really only guess was that it's the Quicksilver, like she was going to the forge to talk to the Quicksilver, but I'm not firm on that.
My immediate thought was the Quicksilver. Adina literally foresaw that Saris and Fisher were godbound mates, and I think she was literally convening with the gods via the Quicksilver. And if so, I also think that's why she kind of remained true to herself throughout it all. She probably just knew she had to come to terms with the future and do what had to be done because the literal universe was at stake. But I think she also would have been comforted to know that the gods were kind of like looking out for her in a way, like looking out for both Fisher and Saris. I definitely think it was like either just to the Quicksilver or using the Quicksilver to also like talk to the gods, perhaps. The other thing in relation to this quote was the ending of it when Archer said she remained exactly who she had always been, even when that monster sent for her and she had to go. So most would assume we are talking about Bellicon, but I did have a moment where I was like, what if it wasn't? What if it was the same like shadowy figure Everlaynes saw in whatever alternate state she was in when she delivered that message about the gate being open and all of that. Adina knew the rot was coming, and if she was also kind of like communing with the gods, hypothetically, then I'm inclined to think that the evil would come for her eventually, since she's been doing so much work to try and set things in motion and kind of like prepare Fisher and Ceres to fight it later on. I'm just gonna throw it out there that maybe that part was not about Belicon, and it was actually about like the big baddie bad down in hell or something.
Ooh, okay. I'm here for it. Archer goes to fetch some flowers that Lady Adina used to love, and while he's gone, for no reason at all, Carrion casually tells Ceres that a water sprite told him that the fire sprites are dying out. But of course, we don't get any more information on that because they are interrupted by Archer's cries for help. Of course, we'll talk about it in the next chapter, but still. This really caught my interest as well because we know from the next chapter that the brimstone found inside a fire sprite can help defeat the rot. I can't think of any other reason they'd be going extinct other than someone or something is using them to fight the rot, or I do kind of, I guess, have a contradicting thought later. We'll talk about it, but it stood out to me.
I also agree that this was very random and very specific of Carrion to just bring up. And it's definitely related to the fire sprites and brimstone, if I had to guess.
Yeah. Feels like a little bit of a clumsy way to introduce this into the plot. So,
yeah,
whatever. Ceres immediately sprints out to help Archer, but mistakenly grabbed the null blade. When she threw it at the feeder, it pinned into the wall, but then absorbed into its body. So, yeah, it's a no for me, dog. I don't know why, but that just seemed like extra, especially creepy to me.
Did not like that. There was that whole description of how it seemed to like its muscles like rippled and it just like grew and expanded bigger. And I was like, no thanks, don't like that. But I definitely was really upset that it was Archer that was out there. I was like, no, why Archer? But also, this was kind of like the main thing I was thinking about when I made the comment earlier about how the no blades and the infected feeders seem to both absorb other magic, which actually also made me think about that magic wall that was like surrounding the demon trap back in Sylvarin, and how at first it was just absorbing Fisher's magic, basically. So like there's been like a few different instances of these kind of like dark energy things. And we also know that actually Joshin is a demon god from hell. And so I don't know. I feel like this all kind of just continues to feed into the idea that all roads lead to hell. Everything bad is coming from hell, basically.
All roads lead to hell? Wow. This is a really depressing episode. Isn't the actual goal all roads lead to heaven?
Yes, but all roads lead to hell in this case.
Okay, cool. You do need a nap. You really do. Okay. Carrion came out to help, and he and Ceres are fighting the feeder. One thing that kept bothering me was, why would this feeder want Archer at all? He didn't kill him immediately, and in fact, he's trying to take him over the wall. He can't eat him. He doesn't have normal blood, so it doesn't really make any sense that it would want anything to do with Archer at all.
Well, I have a thought. If we recall, when they first met the infected feeders, they made that comment about how they all seemed to be controlled by something or someone else, and they were all like moving in unison. So I would be willing to bet that it was trying to kidnap Archer and take him to whoever commands them. Most likely to like either maybe study him or take his brimstone, now that we know brimstone is able to kill the infected feeders and can stop the rot.
Ooh, I like that thought. Yes. Okay, that makes sense.
Big brain energy.
I'm with the logic on that.
Big brain energy.
Yeah, girl.
Yes.
Something that was so heartbreaking is during this entire attack, Archer keeps shouting, "My lady!" Again,
My lady.
His narrated voice is just so perfect and cute. But even when he's literally in a life or death situation, he still calls Ceres my lady. And something about that just really tugged at my heart. He's like literally trying to protect Ceres, and he's like, "My lady!" And
my lady, bro. My lady. Oh,
I
know. Baby Archer.
I know. Speaking of hearts, mine absolutely stopped when the feeder tore Archer's neck wide open. I really thought Archer was a goner for sure. But put a pin in that for later, because the other absolutely shocking consequence of this is the magma that spews from Archer's wound starts melting the rotted feeder. Obviously, we learn in the next chapter about why this happens, so we'll talk about it there. But I did also find it interesting that the entire feeder melts, and all that remains is the null blade. So even brimstone doesn't impact the null blade. So I really want to know what the heck that thing is made of.
Well, I did actually wonder, like, if brimstone doesn't impact it, what if it's actually made with brimstone? Or salt, perhaps.
That or both, or the tree of prima.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good thought, actually. Like, it can't destroy it because that's what it's made with. Oh, that's interesting. I like that. Frantic to save Archer, Saris and Carrion carried Archer into the forge. And all I can say is thank God we went one chapter further, because I do not think I could have stopped here worrying about whether Archer would live or die. So
Oh my
relieved.
Yeah. Things really got exciting like right at the end here. So I'm hoping it stays that way as we near the end of the book. I hope we'll keep up with the momentum and like we just have more exciting bam, bam, bam information, plot, thrill, peril coming forth. All right. So that ends chapter 34. And now we have finally reached our final chapter, chapter 35.
The title of this chapter is Brimstone. This is in reference to the magma that came out of Archer's body when he was attacked. It's an element that is a kind of magic all on its own. It's a fire sprite's equivalent to human blood, and just so happens to be the only substance known to kill the rot.
I am so glad we got this confirmed because we definitely theorized in past episodes that Brimstone could be a potential cure or thing that could stop the rot, and now we know that it is. However, I totally did not expect the fire sprites to have it, and that just like really surprised me. I don't know. I just didn't see it coming. Yeah, I was flabbergasted. Yeah, straight up. Don't even have thoughts, like no thoughts because I was so surprised.
Same. Everyone gathers in the extremely hot quarters of the fire sprites, and Loreth explains to them what the substance was that came out of Archer. It was brimstone, an element that had its own magic. We also learned they used some of the remaining brimstone to kill the plants infected with the rot, and it killed and stopped the rot on those plants as well. So it seems like it doesn't just kill the feeders, but it actually can stop and eliminate the rot wherever it has spread.
I do wonder if this will be something Saris will be able to control eventually as an alchemist because of that text and the whole like Tria Prima and alchemy and how you can combine quicksilver, salt, and brimstone and all that. But on the other hand, since it's this innate element and lifeblood of a different magical being, then perhaps no. If it's only in fire sprites, then I also could see a situation where it's like, how would an alchemist control something that, how do I phrase this? That like literally lives and exists in a different being, you know?
No, it's a good question. That was where the good news ended and the bad news began. Ishabal begins to explain why. Brimstone flows in a fire sprite's body, but unlike blood, does not regenerate. They cannot lose a significant amount of it, a few drops at most over the course of their lifetime. And there is a finite amount of brimstone in Avelia, and every last drop of it is spoken for by the sprites. So before we get into that, I do want to talk about what Fisher notes about Ishabal. He notes that when she left, she was a novice, but while she was away, she had undergone the most intense trial she ever was likely to face in her lifetime and now returned as a prioress. We really don't know anything at all about the witches and their political structures or their culture, but I'm really hoping we will get to explore them more because I want to know what they know. You know, it's clear that they have a very long storied history in Avelia, have been critical to some pretty major historical points, and yeah, I want to know about them. I do also wonder what Ishabal's trial entailed, what prompted her to do it now, and what powers and her privileges were granted to her as a result. So I would just like more witch time, more Ishabal time. I like Ishabal a lot.
Retweet. She kind of just disappeared for a while and casually undergoes this like very intense trial and then just pops back into the storyline. Yeah, would like to know more about the witches. I would imagine if she's still a character in the storyline, then she will obviously continue playing some sort of important role, and I would agree that it's likely in relation to whatever she can do or knows as a high-ranking witch now.
Archer will live, thank the gods, but only because his pyre, the name for an individual's fire sprite community, will each give some of their brimstone to bring his core temperature back up again. Okay, so as soon as this got introduced, it started driving me crazy. So I'm going to explain it as I understood it, and y'all just tell me if I'm wrong. I don't know why I got like really hung up on this, but I did, so here we are. We don't know how many fire sprites there are or how they originally created. Here's what we do know. Brimstone is finite. Sprites do not make more of it. And the whole existing supply is already claimed by sprites currently alive. New sprites are quote-unquote made when the pyre members each donate a bit of their own brimstone to form a new life. Okay, so here's the part where my brain kind of broke. They can't afford to lose more than a few drops over their entire lifetime, so every new life costs multiple sprites brimstone that they can never grow back, which means the population can never really grow because every birth is subsidized by existing sprites getting more depleted, which means they are always redistributing as opposed to like actually adding to the population. The total brimstone that we know of exists is likely shrinking, although probably very slowly since donors can't get theirs back, and presumably some is lost in death, injury, magic use, etc. Like what happened to Archer. That would be a net loss for fire sprites as a whole because that brimstone is gone, right? Which means like that's less population they can grow. So this kind of all links back to what Kieran was saying, that the fire sprites are dying out. Now, it seems like it's slowly, right? But every birth is a tiny tax on the whole community. So mathematically speaking, they're doomed to shrink or weaken over generation unless something changes, like a new brimstone source. That's how I understood what Kieran's comment and the brimstone issue with the fire sprites as a whole. Is that what you guys, collective community, and Lorraine, is that the conclusion you came to? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that all makes sense, and that's pretty much the gist of it.
Kingfisher and Sarah go to the rooftops of college to get some air, and Fisher tells her the story of his father and how he lost a toe to a graven. I'm not going to rehash the story because, well, you guys can read it, and you probably don't need or want me to summarize it for you. I'm going to be honest, this whole story was weird as fuck. It was real weird. I reread it a few times to see if there was some secret meaning or metaphor, but I came up with nothing. So my assessment is that it really was just a weird but sweet story about Fisher's father, and it's just meant to humanize Fisher and make us connect with him. And it's a scene for Sarah and Fisher to build their relationship. So, and I think also Fisher tells the story because he's thinking about Archer, and Archer is the one who told him this story about the graven. But other than that, it's just a weird little story.
Yeah, that was really odd. I guess the message when it comes to love is that love is a choice that both people make together. But aside from that, I wonder what else Archer knows about the family. Like, he's bound to have some more interesting information. I also want to know more about Fisher's father's magic because it's such a powerful magic.
Yes. Archer really does know a lot. Like, he'll just pop in and drop wisdom on Adina and how things used to be at college. And you're like, oh, like,
right.
He knows a lot. They should ask him more questions.
Agreed.
By the time Fisher's done with his story, the sun is starting to rise, and so they decide to go to the Huntsman cottage in the dream state again. Once again, they don't discuss any of their problems. They just go to breathe and be at peace because they earned that. I feel like the language of like, we really deserve this is super overt, and you're like, yeah, mental health matters. But I'm like, you know what? Sometimes the end of the world is more important than your mental health. I'm just saying. And you guys have a lot of sex, which is good for your mental health. Like, oh, you know what? Okay, I'm going to stop myself. I'm going to go back to, okay, I went off script. Let me go back. Okay, I'm going back. Okay. Overall, in a positive light, this is a very heartwarming section of the chapter. Again, I think it mostly just serves as a relationship building for the two of them. And y'all know my complaints about all the sex scenes. So it was nice to see them connect with their close still on this time. So I did like that. I'm not going to go on the full soapbox, but it's still super cool that they have and are using this dream world connection. But again, no discussion of how this is possible. They did it one time, they were amazed and just blindly said they did it as a neat trick. And now it's a place for them to go chill. So that's cool, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
The very end of this chapter was the most interesting to me. Sarah tells Fisher he'd have to face the sun for her because as a vampire, the sun is a big no-no. And then she says, and I will become your shadow. And Fisher responds, you should know, Saris, I am my father's son. My strength has always been my shadows. This piqued my interest. Parked my ears up, made me sit a little straighter. Lorraine has speculated on this a lot, that Fisher's magic comes from Styx, the god of shadows. This sort of like unlocks something in my brain. What if Fisher's magic wasn't just gifted by Styx? What if Styx is Fisher's actual father? Pew, 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 pew. Okay, like my strength has always been my shadows. I am my father's son. We know obviously Finran had strong shadow magic. I have no evidence to support this other than this quote and some context, but I'm gonna throw it out there just in case.
Yeah, I'm really on board for that. I feel like maybe this has come up some way somehow, or like we may have suggested it in the past, but no, I am on board with that for sure. And if that is the case, then I do want the whole story on how Styx became baby daddy and Finran became step baby daddy.
Unless Styx is Finran. Unless they're one and the same.
Oh, and Finran is okay, yeah. Oh.
Yeah, that's his, like, fae form or whatever.
I'm on board for this. That would really explain how they got shadows in the first place. Yes, we like this. Like this a lot. The final thing I want to add in relation to this is that I wonder if facing the sun could literally mean facing a god for her, because I'm taking this in a little bit of a different direction. We do have Baal, who is the goddess of the sun, and there was also Malleus, who is the god of dawn and new beginnings, not to mention rants about double suns and Zavar and blah, blah, blah. But I wonder if this is like kind of like a symbolic, you're going to have to face the gods for me, you know, instead of like the real suns.
Oh, like a double meaning. Oh,
yes,
okay,
yeah.
yes, I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, well, guys, we have officially finished our chapter analysis. So now we just have our favorite moments and quotes before we end the episode.
All right. My first favorite moment is when Cerys and Orious are in the tomb. It says, the smug smile died on Orius's lips. Fuck, he whispered. Yeah. Fuck. I really like that. It was a badass moment.
My first favorite moment was this quote: the way you love me, some would say that is your weakness. Some would say that, but they would be wrong. It's my strength.
Aww.
Very sweet.
You love to see it.
Yeah.
My next favorite moment is also in a similar vein. My Prince of Shadows, I had been born into the light, but my salvation had been waiting for me in the dark.
Very cute. My next one was from Adina to Cerys, and it's when she wrote, for you, God's blessed. Thank you for loving my boy.
Oh, that is nice.
Oh.
Aw. I like reliving all of these. I'm like, you're right, that is a nice moment. My next favorite one is more of a funny one. It's when Carrion says, don't concern yourself with Simon. I know exactly where my God sword is. Thank you very much.
My next favorite quote was from Archer, and it's when he said, the Diantheses weren't always perfect. Your ancestors made their fair share of mistakes, but they always fought to correct themselves when they veered from the path, and they always put their people first. I know in my heart that you will do the same, Master Swift.
Oh, Master Swift. I don't know why that's so cute that he's trying to reassure Carrion.
I know.
Aww. My next favorite moment from this set of chapters is just the entire scene with Fisher and Onyx. You know, the pine cone, the fish. I mean, come on. It was freaking adorable. It was freaking adorable.
Oh. My next favorite one was this quote: the burns would hurt, the scars would be ugly, but we weren't going to leave our friend to die out in the snow. That was a thought from Cerys after they saved Archer.
All these tug on my heartstrings, man. This next one is a shared one between Lorraine and I, and it's when it said, dreams are just vapor and smoke. They mean nothing unless you're willing to live them. You are good. You are my brother. You are a wolf. Nothing will ever change that.
My next favorite one, your choices had to be your own. I saw that in the end. I see it now too. Every day you have a right to walk the road that stretches out before you. I will not rob you of your path by insisting I carry you.
My last favorite one is in Edina's letter to Fisher, and she says, I have no regrets. I love you. I am proud of you. Now give her back the book.
My final quote for today is when Cerys says, you'll have to face the sun for me too. And then Fisher responds gladly. And then she says, and I will become your shadow. All right. So this brings us to the end of our episode. So thank you all for joining us for another episode of the Booked on Fantasy podcast. As always, we're so glad you found us. So please leave us a review and follow us on Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube to keep up with us on a daily basis. That's all we've got for you guys today.
So remember, we would cut down every tree in existence for you.
And we'll catch you all next week. Bye.
Bye. And stay tuned for some bloopers. According to Archer, there is a way of doing things and... Oh, wait. Oops. Cerys tried to soothe Arthur. Cerys tried to soothe. I can't say soothe. Okay. Breathing is important. Wow, that was really bad. Okay. Take a deep breath now.
Deep breath.
Okay. Deep breaths. And strongly encourage her to throw it in a deek pit. Okay. Chapter 34. No, okay, that was in a burp. Nope, okay, I did. Carrion. No, I feel like I'm trying to do something weird here. Carrion then asked Cerys. No, let me read it first. Hold on. Okay. Carrion told Cerys they should. What?
Wait, hold on. Oh my fucking God. Are you kidding me?
What's going on? There's like, what's falling on you?
There's freaking our light fixtures keep like popping out of the ceiling. So it just
what? Archer, no.
No.
I care most about like Archer and Onyx.
I know.
Anybody else? Like someone could die and I'd be like, yeah, okay.
But Archer, definitely not Archer.
Not Archer.
Never.
Protect him at all costs. It's me. Whoops.
That's you.
Sorry, I'm used to you being in charge. I don't like this. I'm very uncomfortable. Okay. I wonder if this figurine is more important. Or sorry. I wonder if this figurine... sorry, I keep like burping. Ugh. Okay.